Welcome to Novel Love Hearing. We bring you hundreds of novel audiobooks covering every genre and every kind of story you can imagine. Action? We've got it. Adventure? Absolutely. Horror? Of course. Whether it's the legendary Uchiha Massacre or outrageous tales like stealing Naruto's and Sasuke's women, you'll find it here. From epic series like One Piece, Bleach, Fairy Tail, and Hunter x Hunter, to countless other adventures, our library has it all. Love novels but don't have time to read? No worries, just plug in your earbuds, sit back, and let the story take over. Good listening, and happy hearing. Where is Muramasa? Jinrai muttered, scanning the hall. That's Zanpakuto. Known as the Shinigami Nemesis. Was it sealed? Yamamoto narrowed his eyes and slowly turned his gaze to one person. An. And so did everyone else. Captains. Lieutenants. Even those who had only heard rumors of Muramasa's dangerous power. All their eyes were now on the 5th Division's newly appointed captain. Ain stood there calmly, his palm still resting on the hilt of Koga's sheathed Zanpakuto. No shikai. No reaction. Not even a sound. The blade was completely suppressed. The entire hall fell into stunned silence. Ain, you. Koga's face was pale. His spiritual connection to Muramasa felt like it had been buried underground, cut off, or worse. Devoured. You said you were going to teach me what dignity is, what rules are, and what authority means. I've only been a captain for a day. Maybe I haven't learned all the rules yet. Ain's voice was calm, almost casual. But with each word, the pressure grew heavier. I only understand one thing, fist is power. With his left hand holding Muramasa's hilt firmly, his right hand slowly clenched into a fist. A chilling sound echoed in the hall. So, Koga. Ain's gaze fell on the trembling Kuachiki. What do you think? With a single movement, he dragged the blade forward with his fist. An unmistakable gesture. Koga's face turned ashen. What did you do to my Zanpakuto? Ain. Answer me. Koga's voice cracked. It was no longer just anger. He panicked in desperation. Why had he been accepted into the Kuachiki clan? Why was he given the noble surname? Because of Muramasa. That was it. Without Muramasa, he was nothing. He wasn't stupid. He knew. But now, with a single touch, Ain had made his Zanpakuto silent. Unresponsive. Dead. Stop yelling. You just look weak. Ain stared at him coldly. Also, remember next time. When you talk to me, use my proper title. Captain Ain. Do you understand? His two eyes lit up with contrasting radiance. His left eye glowed like the sun. Brilliant and all-seeing. His right eye gleamed like a black hole. Deep, bottomless, and terrifying. Koga's breath stopped. He felt as if his very soul was sinking. As if Muramasa had been dragged into eternal darkness, and his own spiritual body was being sliced apart. For the first time since bonding with Muramasa, he felt fear. Fear that he couldn't describe. A moment ago, he was shouting. Now, silence. I haven't heard your answer yet, Kuachiki Koga. Ain's tone was soft, but to Koga, it sounded like the weight of a mountain. It made his legs weak and his thoughts freeze. I understand. Captain Ain. Good. Only then did Ain let go of Muramasa's hilt. Flash steps. Koga vanished in a flash, appearing near the door of the assembly hall. He didn't even dare look back at Ain. And the first thing he did was shout, deep in his heart. Muramasa. Finally, Muramasa reappeared in his inner world. Shivering, panicked. Only Koga could see him. Koga. Don't let him touch me again. Muramasa's expression was completely different from before. His usual calm arrogance was gone, replaced by unease and fear. What happened? Koga asked sharply. I called you again and again, and you didn't respond. You were the one who told me to act. Why didn't you appear? Muramasa's voice trembled. I don't know either. I saw a massive black hole. And I was sucked into it. There was nothing. Just darkness. I tried everything to escape. I couldn't. Muramasa was still shaken. Aren't you the one who controls Zanpakuto? Why didn't you just cut off Ain's Zanpakuto from the inside? That's your ability. I couldn't. Muramasa looked at Koga, deeply shaken. When he grabbed me, all my powers were gone. I couldn't do anything. Silence. Koga felt like the world was crumbling around him. Muramasa had never failed. No Zanpakuto had ever resisted him. Yet here. Before Ain. He was powerless. What about Bunkai? Koga whispered, trembling. Muramasa shook his head. I don't think it matters. And just like that. Koga's greatest source of pride, his weapon, his status, his fantasy of rising through the ranks and one day challenging even Yamamoto Genryu's eye. Shattered. Everything he had built in his mind crumbled like dust. Chapter 63, Why am I the one being punished? My abilities were useless. Muramasa's voice trembled slightly as he explained to Kuichiki Koga. But Koga, don't panic. The key problem is I got caught by him. I suspect it's Aien's Zanpakuto ability. In other words, next time if you face him again, you must use Bankai before he gets close. Release my power, let me enter his inner world. As long as I do that, I can definitely take control of his Zanpakuto. Now that the fear had passed, Muramasa was left with deep frustration and fury. Until now, he had never taken any Zanpakutos seriously. Not even Rijinjaka, the legendary flame-type Zanpakuto wielded by Genryu's Yamamoto himself. In Muramasa's eyes, every Zanpakuto in the entire Soul Society existed only to submit to him. But just now? He had been sealed. Instantly and completely. By a Zanpakuto he didn't even recognize. One that didn't even show any hostility or intent. Just one touch, and it was over. For a Zanpakuto like Muramasa, who prided himself above all others, this was the ultimate humiliation. I can fight back, he muttered with conviction. Hearing this, Kuichiki Koga finally let out a breath of relief. The heavy pressure Aien had imposed on him was now slowly fading. And with Muramasa's reassurance, a glimmer of hope was born again. Even the illusion of being able to take revenge began to form in his mind. But right at that moment, Kuichiki Koga, the voice of Genryu's Ishigakuni Yamamoto, sharp and majestic, suddenly echoed from the front of the meeting hall. It instantly silenced everything and everyone. Captain Commander. Koga stiffened. The earlier heat in his head disappeared at once. He knelt on one knee without hesitation. The cold sweat on his back hadn't even dried yet, but a chill ran through him again. This is bad. Really bad. Captain Kuichiki, what is your opinion? Yamamoto's calm voice carried a chilling authority. This was not just a casual question. Anyone familiar with Soul Society knew if Yamamoto Shigakuni asked for your opinion on a matter like this, you'd better agree without hesitation. And Kuichiki Koga knew that if it were any other officer, whether a seated officer or even a lieutenant, they wouldn't even get a chance to speak. They'd be punished on the spot. Captain Commander, replied Kuichiki Jinrai calmly, Kuichiki Koga is no longer a third seat of the 6th Division. He is now a member of the 1st Division. I leave everything in your hands. Without any hesitation, Jinrai personally sealed Koga with a bakudo and pushed him forward to Yamamoto. Kuichiki Koga, Yamamoto declared firmly, you disrupted the captain's inauguration ceremony, shouted in the 1st Division's assembly hall, and attempted to release your Zanpakuto without authorization. You showed no respect to the chain of command. You disrespected your superior, the newly appointed captain, and even spoke insolently to this old man. As of this moment, I strip you of your position as captain of the 1st Division's Special Task Force, revoke your rank as chief officer, and reduce you to a regular Shinigami of the 1st Division. The hall fell silent. Koga's eyes widened in shock. He had only just received the position. And in mere minutes, it was gone. Not just the title, but he'd been thrown down to the lowest rank. This wasn't just a demotion. It was public humiliation. Why? Koga thought in disbelief. Why am I the one being punished? Aien was the one who suppressed him. Aien had humiliated him. And yet Aien was fine. More than fine. He had just been officially accepted as captain and now stood with his head held high. Wasn't Koga the one defending the rules? But Koga didn't dare say these words out loud. Because as soon as Yamamoto narrowed his eyes, a cold gleam flashed through the air. Do you have an objection? The old man asked, tone laced with warning. No, Captain Commander. Koga swallowed his frustration. His gaze dropped, hiding the storm of emotions swirling inside. I accept my punishment. Jinrai's voice followed coldly, filled with disappointment and frustration. No matter who you are, how high your potential is, or how talented your Zanpakuto may be. If you don't know how to hold yourself, it all means nothing. The captaincy had been arranged through special channels. He had gone through a lot just to pave this path for Koga. And now? All wasted. All because of Koga's arrogance. He even began to consider removing Koga entirely, replacing him with Byakuya Kuichiki, his grandson. As Koga walked back with his head down, no one saw his face hidden beneath his hair. But behind those bangs, his eyes burned with resentment and gloom. Even with the Kuichiki name. I'll never truly be one of them. A monkey in noble clothes. Still a monkey. Maybe I should extract the Spirit King fragment from him. Jinrai's thoughts flickers briefly. But he quickly shook the idea off. The Spirit King fragment could be removed and given to Byakuya. That was no issue for the Kuichiki clan. But Muramasa. That was different. He was too rare, too valuable. Unlike the Spirit King's fragment, Muramasa couldn't simply be transferred. And talent-wise, Koga was still exceptional. Better even than Byakuya in some aspects. His ambition, city-like cunning, and raw Shinigami potential. Despite everything, Jinrai hesitated to abandon him completely. Meanwhile, on the side. TCH, so much for the proud son-in-law of the Kuachiki family. He couldn't even draw Muramasa, and now he's been dismissed. Even Muramasa didn't dare act up. No wonder Shinji got wrecked last time. What the hell is Aien's Zanpakuto? What kind of power is that? Not to mention his flash steps. It's insanely fast. Even someone like Koga, with captain-class power, couldn't keep up. The captains Muguruma Kinsai, Atrabashi Rojiro, and Aikawa Love exchanged glances. They had all seen Muramasa before. Even they wouldn't want to go against him. But what about Aien? He crushed Muramasa by simply placing a hand on the hilt. They couldn't believe it. This man had been a Shinigami for less than 2 months. And yet. Captain Aien, your Hori. 2 First Division members arrived, kneeling respectfully in front of Aien. One held a long-sleeved Hori, the other a short-sleeved version. Aien glanced at them and calmly picked up the long-sleeved Hori, slipping it on effortlessly. The other Shinigami quietly took the unused short-sleeved Hori and returned to the 5th Division to deliver it back. Huh? Captain Aien looks even more handsome now. I was honestly worried. If he picked the short-sleeved one, it might have looked awkward. Strength, looks, aura. Everything is top tier. As the long-sleeved captain's Hori fluttered behind him, more than a few female Shinigami. Lieutenants and captains alike. Couldn't take their eyes off him. Their glances, once secretive, were now open admiration. And so, Aien stood tall. The hall, the captains, the 13th Division of Imperial Guards. All had witnessed his first true step. And it was overwhelming. Chapter 64, this is the kind of presence a captain should have if the position of a 13th Division of Imperial Guards captain strictly demands power and capability. Then the captain's Hori. Whether long-sleeved or short-sleeved. Is an even harsher test of a Shinigami's appearance and figure. Fortunately, Aien didn't just have a Zanpakuto, spiritual pressure, and mastery of sword art, hand-to-hand combats, flash steps and Kido, that surpassed most captains. He also had a presence that surpassed even the so-called King of Kings. Short, slightly curly black hair, sword-like eyebrows, and sharp starry eyes gave off a mix of heroic spirit and casual laziness. The black-framed glasses perched on his nose softened his gaze just enough to not feel too piercing. Combined with a tall, commanding build, he gave off a majestic yet effortless charm. After putting on the flowing Shiakusho and long-sleeved captain's Hori, he didn't look the least bit bloated. Instead, it only enhanced his regal aura. Should we ask Mr. Shiba to design the Hori again to make it a bit uglier? Yeah, or get Captain Shutara to tweak the pattern. There has to be some way to tone it down. Noticing how frequently Yodomaru Lisa's gaze drifted toward Aien, Shun Sekiraku couldn't help but feel slightly bitter. He sighed internally. In his opinion, if the Hori designs were ugly enough, everyone's looks would be balanced out. That way, even a captain with average appearance wouldn't be overshadowed. And Kiraku wasn't alone. Muguruma Kinsai. Aikawa Love. They were all thinking the same. Of course, not every male captain felt threatened by Aien's looks. Good. This is the kind of presence a captain of the 13th Division of Imperial Guards should have. Yamamoto Genryu's Ishigakuni, seated at the center of it all, nodded in quiet approval. Aien had chosen the formal long-sleeved Hori instead of a short one, and looked nothing short of magnificent. His presence radiated strength and dignity. Just what Yamamoto expected from a captain. After all, Yamamoto didn't care about appearance. What he valued was authority. And Aien embodied the essence of a true captain. Captain Aien, please take your seat. The moment Yamamoto spoke, the 2 captains seated to his immediate left. Anohana Retsu and Kuachiki Jinrai. Both stood up and stepped aside without hesitation. Aien gave a polite nod to both of them before calmly walking to the vacant seat. He completely ignored Kuachiki Koga, who was still standing off to the side, watching everything unfold with a clenched jaw. This silent snub caused Kuachiki Koga to tense. His fists balled tightly in frustration. In addition to Captain Aien's inauguration, Yamamoto continued, there is one more important matter. It also concerns him. Come in. As Yamamoto's deep voice echoed through the hall, all the captains and lieutenants turned toward the grand doors of the meeting chamber. Footsteps sounded. A young man with short brown hair and glasses stepped in. His calm demeanor and scholarly appearance made him look somewhat similar to Aien. Aizen Sosuke. As soon as he walked in, several captains instinctively looked back and forth between Aien and Aizen. The next topic is the selection of Captain Aien's lieutenant, Yamamoto declared. As well as the official assignment of Aizen, and the hosting of a lieutenant inauguration ceremony. The room fell into stunned silence. This was the Central Assembly Hall, where only events that affected the entire Soul Society were discussed. Such as captain appointments, or judgments passed down by the Central 46. But now, they were discussing a newly graduated student from Shino Academy. Someone who hadn't even joined a squad yet. The captains and lieutenants present couldn't hide their surprise. Lieutenant inauguration ceremony. Isn't that only for captains? And why gather all captains and lieutenants just for that? Captain Yamamoto must really favor Ain and Aizen. Even Captain Yukitik and Kiraku didn't receive this much attention. Whispers echoed around the room. Disbelief, envy, and speculation filled the air. Kuichiki Koga, standing silently, clenched his fists tighter. He had been the son-in-law of the Kuichiki clan, a seated officer of the 6th Division for 50 years. It was only today that he set foot in this sacred chamber for the first time. And it had ended in humiliation. Yet Ain? Graduated a few weeks ago. Instantly made a captain. Held a grand ceremony witnessed by all. And now his younger brother was about to be made a lieutenant. On the spot. With a full inauguration. He was filled with a boiling mix of jealousy, resentment, and shame. Bang! The tip of Yamamoto's staff struck the floor. Silence. Immediately, the entire room fell quiet. Aizen, he said, turning his eyes toward the newcomer. You may choose between the 1st Division and the 5th Division. If you go to the 5th Division, you will serve as lieutenant under Ain. If you choose the 1st Division, I will appoint you as my own lieutenant. Decide for yourself. Another shock rippled through the chamber. Brother Ain is the captain, and now Brother Aizen is the lieutenant? Double captain tier talent in one generation? Even if Aizen is only a lieutenant now, with his genius and the backing of both Captain Yamamoto and Ain, it's just a matter of time before he becomes a captain himself. If they had been born into noble families, even a low-ranking clan could have skyrocketed into the top tier. If they have children one day, wouldn't their descendants become nobles by default? The captains exchanged stunned looks, while the lieutenants in the back rows were speechless. It was unprecedented for two captains to offer the same person a lieutenant position. And even more shocking that one of them was Yamamoto Genryu's himself. It was as if the head captain himself had lowered his pride to compete for Aizen. Unthinkable. Thank you for the honor, Captain Yamamoto, Aizen finally said, bowing respectfully. Your trust humbles me. He didn't rush his decision. Instead, his bow and words were measured and elegant, showing deep respect. This only made Yamamoto appreciate him even more. With his old age and rigid mindset, Yamamoto especially admired young Shinigami who were not just talented but also respectful of order and tradition. He had tolerated Ain breaking the rules because Ain was powerful enough to deserve it. But with Aizen, he was simply perfect in both ability and conduct. Chapter 65, this man had scripted the entire meeting. Aizen, there's no need to be so formal, and certainly no need to panic. Considering your excellent character and remarkable strength, this old man has decided to make an exception and grant you a choice. In other words, this is an honor you've earned. For the first time in a long while, Yamamoto Genryu's spoke in a warm tone. This made several lieutenants quietly raise their eyebrows in surprise. After all, it wasn't every day that the captain commander of the 13th Division of Imperial Guards. Known for his strict and solemn demeanor. Spoke so kindly. I would like to request placement in the 1st Division. Under the curious gaze of every seated Shinigami, Aizen lowered his head slightly, paused in thought, then looked at Ain briefly before speaking. Not the 5th Division? You would have had your elder brother's guidance and protection. Isn't that better? Aizen, you should know. There are many Shinigami in the Siriite AI who envy you. Many wish they had an older brother like Ain. Yamamoto raised an eyebrow and asked with sincere curiosity. It was obvious he had been expecting Aizen to join the 5th Division under Ain's leadership. To be honest, Captain Commander, I do admire and deeply respect my brother. He's always been my goal, someone I strive to reach. But perhaps that's exactly the problem. Aizen's tone was humble yet honest, his gaze distant. All my life, anything I couldn't do. He could. Anything I could do. He always did better. No matter what path I took, I was always one step behind. If I stayed by his side forever, I'd either become lazy under his protection, or lose myself trying to mimic him. Either way, I'd never be able to catch up. I wouldn't even be able to see his back anymore. But by choosing a different path. By following you, Captain Commander. I can see a different world, and become a better version of myself. Aizen's words, though seemingly simple, carried layers of meaning. They perfectly played the role of a younger brother respectfully breaking free of his elder's shadow. More importantly, they greatly pleased Yamamoto. That last line hit him deeply. Following Ain, I wouldn't even see his back. But following you, I can grow stronger. Especially now, in his twilight years, Yamamoto appreciated earnest, humble Shinigami who followed rules, sought justice, and strove to improve. Aizen was everything he could want in a junior officer. Very well. The doors of the 1st Division are always open to Shinigami like you. Aizen Sosuke. Step forward. Yamamoto's face broke into a rare smile as he lifted his crutch from the floor and waved Aizen over. Captain Commander. Aizen quickly walked forward, bowing respectfully. Would you like to formally become my disciple? Yamamoto looked closely at the young Shinigami before him. The more he observed Aizen, the more satisfied he became. It was rare for him to act on emotion, but this time, he couldn't hold back. Aizen blinked. He was genuinely surprised. Not faking it. He had come today expecting to be named lieutenant, perhaps to impress Yamamoto a little, but to be offered apprenticeship directly under the Captain Commander? That wasn't in his script. What? Didn't the Captain Commander say he would never take on another disciple? If someone like Aizen came to you, could you say no? Right? He's polite, just, humble, and eager to grow. He's the perfect student. Outside of Shun Sekiraku and Joshiro Yukitake, who seemed to have already guessed this outcome, most of the captains and lieutenants looked visibly shaken. Whispers filled the chamber. This is my honor, sir. Behind his brown-framed glasses, Aizen's face showed surprise, happiness, and a bit of nervousness. 10 facial micro-expressions in under a second. His acting was flawless. Even Aizen found himself slightly impressed. A king indeed. With skills like this, it's no wonder Hinamori Momo got played like a fiddle. He couldn't help but shake his head. Aizen's deception ran so deep, even someone like Yamamoto. Seasoned, cautious, powerful. Was dancing to his tune. Every word Aizen had spoken since stepping into the room was calculated. Every look, every pause, every drop of emotion had been staged. The man had scripted the entire meeting. And now, he was reaping the rewards. You're still calling him Captain Commander? Shouldn't you be calling him teacher now? Joshiro Yukitake smiled from the side, clearly pleased. He knew Yamamoto had been disappointed ever since Aizen refused to become his disciple. This moment. Accepting Aizen. Might not erase that regret, but it helped heal the wound. Teacher. Genri Uzai. Aizen finally spoke the word. Good. Yamamoto's usually stern expression broke into a truly content smile, almost fatherly. The kind of smile that said, I made the right choice. He didn't notice the faint trace of pity in Aizen's eyes. You dared to take in the king, principal. That's brave. Aizen sighed softly. He knew better than anyone. Anyone who got close to Aizen never had a happy ending. Aizen's former captain, Hiroko Shinji, became a hollow experiment, was nearly killed in Karakura town, and had his mind toyed with by Kyoka Suigetsu. The entire visored group. His comrades. Were turned into outcasts, stripped of rank, and exiled. Aizen's lieutenant, Hinamori Momo, would have died multiple times if not for sheer luck. His allies. Akamaru Jin, Tosen Kaname, the entire Espada. Every one of them died miserable deaths, betrayed or abandoned. And now Yamamoto, the man who had been a symbol of order in Soul Society for 1,000 years, had willingly stepped into the lion's den. The relationship between teacher and student is closer than that of captain and subordinate. Aizen could already imagine the future. The atmosphere here is quite warm. Why don't I invite Aizen too? Yamamoto suddenly had a bold idea. What if I can mentor both brothers? But the moment he turned to look at Aizen. Seeing the long-sleeved hara draped over his strong frame. He hesitated and dropped the thought entirely. Not because he didn't want to, but because he knew he couldn't. Aizen had taken only a few lessons at the Shino Academy, yet achieved Bankai by himself. He defeated Captain Hiroko with just his Shike, before Hiroko could even activate his own Bankai. Earlier today, he effortlessly suppressed Kuachiki Koga and neutralized Muramasa's ability with a single blow. In terms of Zanpakuto, spiritual pressure, sword art, hand-to-hand combats, flash steps and Kidou, Aizen was perfect? A flawless, hexagon-shaped Shinigami. Even Yamamoto, often called the strongest Shinigami in the last 1,000 years, knew he had nothing left to teach someone like Aizen. Chapter 66, What has he done to earn 2 high commands? Master Genri Uzai doesn't want to accept Aizen as a disciple, does he? Huh? Why didn't Captain Commander Yamamoto speak? I see, even old man Yamamoto isn't confident enough to be Aizen's teacher. Yes, Aizen may still be someone people dare to teach, but Aizen? Who dares claim to be qualified to be his master? Seeing Yamamoto Genri Uzai Shigakuni looking at Aizen, Shun Sekiraku and Yukitake Joshiro thought their teacher would come forward to grab both brothers as disciples, but surprisingly, after glancing at Aizen a few more times, he reluctantly pulled his gaze back. As Yamamoto Genri Uzai's students, they quickly understood the reason. This wasn't about concern. It was that, after this past month, Aizen had displayed such terrifying talent as a Shinigami that even the strongest Shinigami of the past 1,000 years didn't dare claim to be qualified to teach him. Aizen, though this old man placed you under his wing, that does not mean you can act recklessly. On the contrary, as the disciple of the Captain Commander, you are afforded no special privilege. Rather, you must act with even more caution and greater respect for rules and decorum. Understood? After Yamamoto Genri Uzai pulled his reluctant gaze back from Ayan, he immediately warned Aizen, his one and only disciple. But before Aizen could even speak, he changed the subject. Now, by the authority of the Captain Commander of the 13th Division of Imperial Guards, I appoint you as the Lieutenant of Squad 1. Additionally, you shall also serve as the Captain of the Special Force of the 1st Division. Having missed the chance to recruit Ayan forever, he had finally secured Aizen as a disciple. How could Yamamoto Genri Uzai not treat him generously? One second, he was lecturing. The next, he handed out 2 positions, Lieutenant of Squad 1 and Commander of the Special Force. Yet his decision left many of the captains and lieutenants speechless. Not because his word wasn't final. He was, after all, the Captain Commander. But because Aizen's talent and character were without flaw. Of course, none of the captains or lieutenants objected. But not everyone present was so accommodating. For example, I'm the captain of the Special Force. Behind Kuichiki Jinrai, a sudden voice rang out in shock and fury. All Shinigami turned toward the voice, many casting strange glances at Kuichiki Koga. But he didn't care. After all, what had just happened was simply outrageous. Aizen was appointed as the Lieutenant of Squad 1? He could endure that. Aizen being recruited as the disciple of Yamamoto Genri Uzai. Fine. He endured that too. But now, Yamamoto Genri Uzai was appointing Aizen as the commander of the Special Force? That was too much. That had been his position. A role he'd only just assumed. Before even warming the seat, it was taken away in front of him and handed to the younger brother of the man he already hated. Kuichiki Koga could not accept. Kuichiki Koga, are you questioning my decision? Yamamoto Genri Uzai's gaze swept the room until it fell on Koga, who had once again shouted in the meeting hall. And this time had dared to question him directly. How could the soul of Soul Society tolerate that? You fool. Shut up this instant. Guards. Remove Kuichiki Koga from the hall. Kuichiki Jinrai's expression changed drastically. Not giving Koga a chance to speak further, he immediately signaled to his lieutenant and the guards to drag the fool out. Question? I dare not. But Aizen is just a recent graduate of the Shino Academy. What qualifications does he have to become Lieutenant of Squad 1? Let alone hold 2 roles at once. Leading the Special Force too. Kuichiki Koga shoved away the approaching Kuichiki Sujun. Insolence. And what are you, exactly? Who do you think you are? You're just a regular member of Squad 1. Even allowing you to sit in the chamber to listen is already a rare privilege. And now? You've disrupted order again. Clearly refusing to repent. And you dare question the decision of this old man? Yamamoto Genri Uzai's eyes went cold. His staff slammed against the ground. Please calm your anger, Captain Commander. At this moment, Aizen stepped forward. Many Shinigami. Including Muguruma Kinsai, Atrabashi Rojiro, and others. Couldn't help but wonder if Aizen was stepping in to add insult to injury. After all, this was a perfect opportunity to K.O Kuichiki Koga. And considering how Koga had just clashed with Ayan, it would be normal for a younger brother to take vengeance. However, what Aizen said next left even Muguruma Kinsai, and those captains who disliked the Ayan brothers completely stunned. For a moment, they even began to wonder whether Hirako had misjudged Aizen all along. But only Ayan knew. The real play had just begun. What awaited Kuichiki Koga was a fate worse than death. Captain Commander, please allow me to speak. I believe that although Kuichiki Koga spoke rashly, some of his concerns do hold merit. After all, I'm new to Squad 1. I lack qualifications, experience, and strength. I've never done something like Captain Ayan. Defeating the former captain in a duel. To be appointed lieutenant is already far more than I deserve. If I also accept command of the Special Force, it may invite resentment and rumors, and that would harm the unity of the 13th Division of Imperial Guards. Seeing that Aizen not only refrained from striking down Koga, but even seemed to be defending him, Kuichiki Jinrai's eyes flickered with regret. If he had known earlier, he would never have been so hasty to marry off his daughter the moment he saw Koga wielding Muramasa. He should have waited 50 years. If he had saved his daughter and married her off to either Ayan or Aizen, the Kuichiki clan would have secured their place atop Soul Society for the next millennium. Aizen, I'm glad you think this way. It shows your eyes are not fixed on power or status, but on unity and rules. But in the 13th Division of Imperial Guards, rank is earned by strength and character. Your appointment as Squad 1 Lieutenant and Commander of the Stealth Force has nothing to do with your teacher being Captain Commander, nor with your brother being Captain of Squad 5. It's because you, Aizen Sosuke, possess both virtue and talent. And have earned this. Especially after what you just said, that much is clear. On one side stood Kuichiki Koga, who dared question his authority. On the other stood Aizen Sosuke, who sought to protect unity in the 13th Division of Imperial Guards. The Captain Commander's decision was obvious. Aizen. You deserve it. As for Kuachiki Koga, first, you disrespected Captain Ayan, caused a disruption in this chamber, and even released your Zanpakuto in the Squad 1 barracks. And now you openly question my decision, display arrogance, and show clear signs of jealousy toward those more talented than you. Effective immediately, you are expelled from Squad 1, stripped of your Imperial Guard membership, and imprisoned in the Maggot's Nest. Yamamoto Genryuzai first cemented Aizen's positions, then sentenced the married son-in-law of the Kuachiki clan to ruin. Displaying the true, overwhelming authority of Soul Society's strongest. Chapter 67, If I can't kill Ayan, then I'll kill his brother. What? Captain Commander. You're saying you're expelling me from the 13th Division of Imperial Guards? Imprisoning me in the Maggot's Nest? Kuachiki Koga trembled all over, his face frozen in utter disbelief. What had he done wrong? He had bled for Siri Itai, built over 10,000 soul homes in the human world. And this was the return he got? Not even allowed to remain a seated officer. Stripped of the very title of Shinigami? While on the other side, there was that man Ayan. A squad with 2 captains. His older brother used him as a stepping stone. His younger brother took his title. Fine. When you realize your mistake and show remorse, this old man will let you out. Yamamoto Genryuzai Shigekuni spoke each word slowly, his tone filled with unquestionable authority. Ha 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 ha. First, you appoint a Shinigami with no rank, no achievements, as the captain of Squad 5. Then, you make another who's also without merit the lieutenant of Squad 1. Meanwhile, those of us with skill, contribution, and standing. You treat us as worthless, and then you shamelessly say the 13th Division of Imperial Guards values merit and morality over status. You say I, Kuachiki Koga, am beneath Ayan? Beneath Aizen? Just as several members of the Onmitsukido approached him to begin the arrest, he raised his head. And suddenly, the overwhelming spiritual pressure of a captain-level Shinigami erupted from him. Yamamoto Genryuzai Shigekuni. You're getting old. The 13th Division of Imperial Guards is finished. And you want to pass judgment on me? What a joke. In all of Siri Itai, no one is qualified to judge me. Not even the Captain Commander. His roars, heavy with hatred, jealousy, and fury, burst out along with a violent spiritual pressure storm that spread in all directions like a spiraling vortex. Even the lieutenants, just feeling the shockwave of his power, turned pale. Because this spiritual pressure had already surpassed most of the current captains in the room. If measured in spiritual pressure units, it was easily over level 20 Ran spiritual pressure. Kuachiki Koga, do you know what you're saying? Surrender now, and you may yet receive a lighter sentence. If you still refuse to repent, then don't blame me for stripping you of the Kuachiki name and expelling you from the family. Kuachiki Jinrai stepped forward, his face grim with anger. And of all those present, he was the most shocked. Because after today's incident, the Kuachiki clan would no doubt be implicated. But what angered him the most was that he had invested so much in Kuachiki Koga. And before he even had a chance to see the return on that investment. The foundation was already collapsing. Yes. In Kuachiki Jinrai's eyes, this courtroom outburst had already marked the end for Koga. Siri AI was not governed by the Kuachiki family. Central 46 was not owned by the Kuachiki family. Expel me from the Kuachiki family? Strip my name? Ha 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 ha. Did you, Kuachiki Jinrai, ever even treat me as your son-in-law? You disapproved of me in every possible way. And just now, in this meeting, you didn't say a single word to defend me. All you did was scold and threaten. Kuachiki? That name. Take it. I don't need it. From this moment on, there is only Koga in Soul Society. Not Kuachiki Koga. Koga spread his arms wide, and with a single shout, ripped the Kuachiki surname. Dreamed of by so many in Soul Society. Off his name, flinging it to the side. And before anyone could react, he ground it beneath his feet. This act made Kuachiki Jinrai, who valued the Kuachiki name more than life itself, furious to the core. Fine. So be it. Then don't blame this old man for discarding all past ties. You're no longer a Kuachiki. You're no longer my family. And certainly no longer my son-in-law. And since you dared disgrace the Kuachiki name in front of the entire 13th Division of Imperial Guards, I, Kuachiki Jinrai, will personally deliver justice. With that, he reached for his Zanpakuto. You? Do you forget who built the reputation of the Kuachiki family over the past 50 years? You haven't seen true power. Let me show you what Muramasa truly is. A flicker of disdain passed through Koga's eyes. Bankai. Mukachashu Muramasa. As Muramasa's Bankai name was called, Koga's already overwhelming spiritual pressure skyrocketed. In that moment, all lieutenants had no choice but to retreat behind their squad captains, unable to withstand the spiritual pressure. But even the captains, they could block the spiritual pressure, But they could not stop what came next. Kuachiki Koga's omnidirectional Bankai had already been activated. All captains and lieutenants fall back. Yamamoto Genryusai immediately issued the order. Against ordinary enemies, even a squad of lieutenants might overwhelm them. But against Koga? Numbers were meaningless. Too late. Koga grinned menacingly, arrogance oozing from every pore. Just as expected. The Zanpakuto of the captains began to unsheathe themselves. Then they began to materialize. And then they activated Shikai. Turning against their own masters. Only a few captains remained unaffected. Yamamoto Genryusai. And Ain Sosuke. Damn it. This guy's Bankai. He can control this many captains Zanpakuto at once? This is insane. Caught off guard, captains like Muguruma Kinsai and Atrabashi Rojiro were injured immediately. With their Zanpakuto under Muramasa's control, their Shikai and Bankai abilities were unusable. Facing attacks from their own swords, only a handful of captains survived unscathed. Ano Hanaretsu. Kuachiki Jinrai. Shiba Ishin. Shutara Senjima Shun Sekiraku. Even Joshiro Yukitake, because of his frail body, was wounded by his own Zanpakuto. Such was the overwhelming might of the full-powered Muramasa and Koga combination. Ain't Sosuke. Why is he unaffected by Muramasa? Could it be that controlling so many Zanpakuto at once reduced Muramasa's effectiveness? Koga originally wanted to savor the chaos. Watching captains struggle against their own Zanpakuto. But from the corner of his eye, he suddenly noticed something that chilled him. Ain's Zanpakuto hadn't reacted at all. It hadn't even released spiritual pressure. Let alone been affected by Muramasa. This made Koga hesitate, but as he recalled the humiliation he suffered earlier, fury surged once more. If I can't kill Ain, then I'll kill his brother. His eyes turned with murderous intent to Aizen. Muramasa, ignore the others. I want Ain to watch his brother die. Help us to stop it. Hearing this command, Muramasa also filled with resentment after being beaten by Ain. Immediately responded. This is bad. My Kyoka Suigetsu. It's out of control. Among the lieutenants who had already withdrawn, Aizen's expression shifted dramatically. Before he could react, Kyoka Suigetsu, now fully materialized, stepped forward and stabbed him directly in the chest. Lieutenant Aizen has been attacked. This is terrible. Captain Ain must not lose control. As Aizen collapsed, blood spilling across the meeting hall, every lieutenant's expression turned pale. They all knew. If Aizen died, the consequences would be unthinkable. After all, Hiroko Shinji had merely crossed Aizen once. And lost everything overnight. Aizen. Chapter 68, it's just a third seat from Squad 6. Why make such a fuss? Just as many lieutenants were overcome with worry, a voice calm and composed echoed through the room. Yet, the killing intent laced within it sent chills down the spines of every Shinigami present. Shup. Before anyone could react, Ain had already stepped forward. With one hand, he grabbed the materialized Kyoka Suigetsu. With the other, he pushed it back into the Zanpakuto that had pierced Aizen's body. Right in front of all the lieutenants. Wait. You can do that? He just restrained the out-of-control Kyoka Suigetsu. And returned it to its sealed state? As expected of Captain Ain. The strongest prodigy soul society has seen in a millennium. Watching this unfold, every lieutenant. And even many captains Imperial Guard who had just been battered by their own Zanpakuto. Stood stunned in disbelief. Brother. Sorry for the trouble. Don't worry about me. Go suppress the Zanpakuto rebellion. And capture the sinner Koga. And if possible, spare his life. Let Siri-eyed AI judge him. Aizen sat collapsed in a pool of blood, his entire body and robes dyed in red. Alright. Hold on a little longer. It'll be over soon. Very soon. Ain summoned Kanzaki Sayuri, lieutenant of the 4th Division. After requesting her to stabilize Aizen's injuries, he rose and returned to the chamber. Aizen. Yamamoto Genryusai immediately approached. He had just felt Aizen's spiritual pressure plunge into chaos, and knowing Muramasa's abilities, his heart dropped. His Zanpakuto was turned against him, but the 4th Division's lieutenant is attending to him now. He told me to put down the Zanpakuto rebellion first. And bring Koga to justice. Ain's voice was calm and even, with not the slightest hint of rage. As though the one injured wasn't his own brother. Outrageous. Yamamoto's beard bristled like a wildfire at sea. But his anger wasn't directed at Aizen. On the contrary, hearing that his newly recruited disciple, even while bleeding and on the verge of collapse, still thought first of justice and order. Yamamoto felt admiration and heartache. This was someone who revered the justice and laws of Siri-eyed AI like divine will. And that meant he honored the justice that Yamamoto Genryusai himself had forged. Such a disciple. How could he possibly be angry? No. All of that fury was aimed squarely at Koga. Since it's Aizen's request, I'll save Koga's life. I won't reduce him to Rishi particles. Ayan replied flatly. Capture me alive? Try me? Suppress the rebellion? Aizen. How can you say that? You couldn't even protect your brother. Koga laughed, voice twisted with spite and contempt, every word meant to twist the knife deeper. I can. Faced with Koga's ridicule, Ayan didn't show a flicker of rage. He simply walked forward. Koga, too many Shinigami are present right now. If it were just Ayan or Yamamoto Genryu's, I wouldn't care. But the two of them together. That's tricky. Let's retreat for now. Aizen's already down, and you've made your point. We'll settle the score with Ayan and 13 Division of Imperial Guards later. Muramasa's voice rang beside Koga, cautious. After all, most of the captains were still being suppressed by their own Zanpakuto, and the lieutenants were too frightened of his hypnosis to intervene. But Ayan and Yamamoto, their Zanpakuto were unaffected. Even without their blades, their Kido, hand-to-hand combats, and raw strength alone made them horrifying enough. Fine. Koga thought it over and nodded, then looked back at Ayan with a mocking grin. Consider yourself lucky. I took your brother today. Next time, it'll be your turn, Ayan. He dragged a finger across his throat in a mock execution, smirking as he vanished into flash steps alongside Muramasa. The captains were all too entangled with their own Zanpakuto. The lieutenants didn't dare interfere. This was the true power of Muramasa's Benkei, when wielded in full by a captain-level Shinigami. Not the weakened form sealed for 100 years, stripped of strength and scarred by time. Order the 13 Division of Imperial Guards to pursue the criminal Koga. Dead or alive. Yamamoto Genryu's did not chase after them himself. Just now, he had felt a shift in Rijinjaka. But thanks to his 1,000-year bond and towering strength, the change didn't take root. That, too, was a reflection of Koga's limits. If it had been Aizen wielding Muramasa, even if all captains Zanpakuto were hypnotized at once, spreading the control thin, Rijinjaka might have still turned against him. Yes, sir. Lieutenant Chojiro Sasaki stepped forward, ready to relay the order, but stopped short when he noticed Ayan walking toward the chamber doors. Blocking his path. Captain Ayan? Sasaki blinked in confusion. Step aside. There's no need to mobilize the entire 13 Division of Imperial Guards. It's just a third seat from Squad 6. Why make such a fuss? Ayan glanced at the captains still locked in stalemates with their own Zanpakuto. He shook his head and raised his right hand. Dark hell. Hades. The words had barely left his mouth when pitch-black smoke, like a tide of darkness, surged out. In an instant, it swallowed the entire 1st Division. Every guard captain, every lieutenant, and every Zanpakuto under Muramasa's hypnosis. All drowned in the abyss. Ugh! My body. Won't move. What is this? Black mist? Trapped in this boundless void, Shinigami like Konohanaretsu and Yamamoto Genryu's could still see. But the Zanpakuto. Those who had materialized under Muramasa's control. Without exception, they felt their bodies crushed beneath some terrible, invisible force. It was like a mountain of shadow pressing them to the ground. Paralyzing their every limb. Holy hell. It was just one move. And 11 Zanpakuto, the same ones that had the captains fighting for their lives, are already completely suppressed. Is this the strength of Soul Society's greatest genius? He's a captain too. But why is the gap so massive? The lieutenants, also trapped in the black void, could only watch. One by one, they gasped in disbelief, their faces paling with horror. Just moments ago, they had seen firsthand how dangerous the hypnotized Zanpakuto were. How even one-on-one, their captains struggled. Some were even wounded. Sure, they held back, unwilling to go all out against their own Zanpakuto. But even then, it had been a brutal, uphill battle. And yet, Ayan had simply raised his hand. And darkness. Like a tidal wave. Had swallowed everything. The entire 1st Division was submerged. And every hypnotized Zanpakuto was crushed in an instant. Chapter 69, or are you content to watch them kneel before me? What an incredible ability. It's the first time I've seen Kaden Kikatsu humiliated. No wonder Hirako lost so miserably. Even his Benkai couldn't be used. Although none of our Zanpakuto used Benkai either, Ayan is still just one man, and he hasn't used his Benkai either. That Lord Yamamoto only dared to accept Aizen as a disciple and didn't dare accept Ayan. It's not without reason. A talent like that is beyond teaching. It wasn't just the lieutenants who were shocked. Shun Sekiraku, Joshiro Yukitake, and the others, seeing their Zanpakuto so thoroughly dominated, were equally in awe at Ayan's strength and the ability of his Zanpakuto. Previously, they had assumed Ayan's Shikai could only suppress or seal a few Zanpakuto, and only under direct contact. But now, that clearly wasn't the case. So many captain-level Zanpakuto had been suppressed with just a wave of the hand. Rijinjaka. just like in the graduation exam. Are you afraid of Ain's Zanpakuto? To suppress this many Zanpakuto in a single move, Ain's Kofuin must be the strongest dark element Zanpakuto. But for it to cause this level of fear in Rijinjaka, it shouldn't just be strongest dark element. As he listened to the faint echo of Rijinjaka's voice, Yamamoto looked toward the Zanpakuto engulfed by darkness. Those that had been materialized by hypnosis. He was nearly certain that Ain's Kofuin was the most powerful dark type Zanpakuto. But even so, he couldn't understand why Rijinjaka reacted with such overwhelming wariness. Across 1,000 years, he'd seen many wielders of the so-called strongest elemental Zanpakuto. Even those who defeated their predecessors weren't enough to make Rijinjaka fear them. At most, they earned its recognition. But Ain's Kofuin. Upon its second release, Rijinjaka's instinct was the same as if it faced a natural enemy. Captain Anohana, Captain Yukitake, Captain Kiraku, Teacher Ishin. Are you not going to retrieve your Zanpakuto? Or are you content to watch them kneel before me? If so, that's fine. I'll help. Seeing that Kaden Kikatsu, Minazuki, and Sogio no Kodawari. Some of the most powerful Zanpakuto. Still dared to struggle, Ain raised his hand. Majestic black mist surged skyward, forming a massive palm of pure darkness. Like the Buddha subduing Sun Wukong, the palm descended and slammed the 3 Zanpakuto to the ground. Not one could resist. They couldn't even twitch. Wait, I'm coming. Sorry. I was just stunned by your strength. Forgive the trouble, Captain Ain. Anohana Retsu, Shun Sakuraku, and Joshiro Yukitake finally stepped forward, thoroughly ashamed for standing aside so long. Despite their centuries of experience, they hadn't panicked in the face of a sudden rebellion. In fact, they had acted almost amused. But after Ain called them out, they had no excuse. They immediately began subduing their own Zanpakuto with combinations of Kido, hand-to-hand combats, and sword art. So, subduing your Zanpakuto removes Muramasa's hypnosis? Seeing this, the other captains quickly understood. This was the way to break Muramasa's control. Taking advantage of the suppression by Ain's darkness, they charged forward while their Zanpakuto were weakened and immobile. In just a short time, the enormous black mist that had engulfed the 1st Division headquarters dissipated, and sunlight once more poured down over Siriate AI. Bathed in the golden glow, many captains stared at their Zanpakuto in hand, stunned. It felt like a dream. A Zanpakuto rebellion that involved 11 captains of the 13th Division of Imperial Guards. Suppressed by Ain in less than 5 minutes. Before the materialized Zanpakuto could even strike, they were sealed and returned to their wielders. Koga, you said Ain had no achievements or qualifications. Are you stupid? Aren't you his greatest achievement? Kuachiki Jinrai couldn't help looking toward Ain. This figure who had stopped a full-scale Zanpakuto rebellion with a flick of his fingers. His heart trembled. And he felt unease. He feared that the secret pact he made with Tsunayashiro Tokunada. The assassination attempt on the Sosuke brothers. Might come to light. With the Kuachiki family's status, even if it did, they wouldn't fear Ain. But they would gain 2 enemies for no reason. And that was troubling. Especially after this Koga rebellion, the Kuachiki family had lost a powerful deterrent. Koga, a captain-level asset. Now, all 13 Division of Imperial Guards captains owe Ain a favor. Including Jinrai himself. This meant Ain wasn't merely the captain of Squad 5 anymore. He was now one of the most pivotal forces in all of Siriate AI. Even Anohana, Yukitake, and Kiraku were now in his debt. Your Zanpakuto is overjoyed that you used her to suppress the Zanpakuto of 11 captains. She feels proud to shine in front of sword art, hand-to-hand combats, flash steps, and spiritual pressure. So, she has decided to reveal to you her Shikai ultimate form, heaven and earth, submit in reverence. After the rebellion, Kofuin couldn't contain herself. Thrilled by her moment of glory. Suppressing 11 captains. She announced the awakening of her Shikai's ultimate dark form, meant to match the already revealed light form, throne of heaven, rule of one. Heaven and earth? Ain raised his eyes to the sun shining above Siriate AI. A flicker of anticipation crossed his gaze. Neither Kofuin's light ultimate nor her darkness ultimate had ever been used. Not because he couldn't, but because no one yet had been worthy of seeing them. Captain, do we really not need to issue a warrant? Chojiro Sasaki approached and asked Yamamoto Genryuzai in a quiet voice. If Captain Ain says it's unnecessary, then I will trust him. He will handle it himself. The sinner. Koga. There is no need for a public warrant. No need to trouble all of 13 Division of Imperial Guards. Yamamoto thought for a moment and agreed to Ain's suggestion. After all, in under 5 minutes, he had crushed a rebellion involving 11 captains Zanpakuto. Even Yamamoto Genryuzai, strict as he was, found no flaw in that result. Yes, sir. Chojiro Sasaki nodded. After witnessing Ain's strength with his own eyes, he too felt it would be pointless to mobilize all of Siriide AI for a mere third seat from Squad 6. There was no need. Because Ain alone could handle it all. Rather than waste time and effort. Better to leave everything to him. Chapter 70, You've got it wrong. I've been here waiting, you may go, Ain. Don't worry. When you return, I will ensure Aizen Sosuke is healthy again. I swear this upon the name of the 4th Division Captain. Anohana Retsu stepped beside Ain, her calm voice firm. Then she turned, silently instructing Kanzaki Sayuri to take her place treating the gravely wounded and unconscious Aizen. Thank you, Retsu. Ain nodded slightly in gratitude, and the moment he did, he vanished. There was no movement, no sound. Just disappearance. His voice, however, lingered like a whisper in the hall, so fast. Was that even flash steps? That felt more like a key-level forbidden technique. Space displacement. I heard he mastered this kind of flash steps after taking just one class at the Shino Academy. If his earlier suppression of the Zanpakuto rebellion showed the captains what absolute power looked like, then this display of movement revealed to them what absolute speed meant. Except for a select few. Like Yamamoto Genri Uzai. Even captains couldn't react. Their eyes failed to track him. Sokioka Hill. The air trembled, and for a moment, space distorted like a ripple on a pond. Two figures emerged like phantoms. Kuichiki Koga and Muramasa, fresh from their rebellion at the 1st Division. TCH. Killed his little brother. I went too easy on him. If Yamamoto Genri Uzai hadn't been watching and if there weren't so many captains. I'd have made sure they both died under my bankai. Even after leaving the Imperial Guard, Koga's resentment hadn't faded. There'll be more chances. With me around, there is no Shinigami in Soul Society who can stop you. Whatever you wish, I will see it done. Muramasa's voice practically dripped with servitude. Humphrey. Satisfied, Koga smirked. Now that he had defected, it felt like he'd broken free from the cage. No more orders, no more humiliation. Just power. Revenge. The future? Why wait? Why not now? Koga-kun. As the two stood atop the Sokioka platform, planning their next move, a voice echoed behind them. Ain. The moment he heard it, Koga froze. He turned sharply. There stood Ain, on the hillside next to the execution platform, eyes cold, posture proud. You left the 1st Division. And came here to die? Koga's voice turned sharp, cold like steel. Chase you? No, Ain shook his head slowly. You've got it wrong. I've been here waiting. Waiting? Koga narrowed his eyes. Correct. I arrived before you. I've been standing here for over a minute. Ain's words were calm, but carried a weight that crushed the air around them. Humphrey, forget it. Since your brother's dead, I'll give you a pass. What's wrong? Watching Aizen die before your eyes and being unable to save him. Is that why you're here? If so, I can help. I'll send you to meet him. Koga sneered, taunting. You keep bringing up Aizen. Ain's voice suddenly lightened. You must miss him. Yes, I miss Aizen too. I regret not killing him myself. I should have twisted his head off with my own hands. Such a pity, Koga clicked his tongue. You're so emotional. Want to see Aizen? Turn around. Ain pointed behind Koga with a faint smile. Huh. What is this? Some ghost story? There's no spiritual pressure back there. You think I'm going to fall for that cheap trick? Do I look 3 years old to you? Koga snorted, spreading out his spiritual perception. Nothing. He was certain Ain was trying to distract him. There's nothing behind me. And yet. Ain chuckled. I'm already looking at him. What nonsense. I think you're grieving a bit too hard. Don't worry. I'll send you to the afterlife to reunite. Koga's gaze sharpened, refusing to shift his eyes. He remembered clearly what happened in the meeting hall. Muramasa had successfully hypnotized Kyoka Suigetsu and struck Aizen down. Suppressed both Shikai and Benkai. That Shinigami should have been dead. You keep repeating my name. You must miss me. Kuichiki Koga. No, I should say, Sinner Kuichiki Koga. The voice didn't belong to Ain. It came from behind Koga. Aizen? Koga's face changed dramatically. That voice. How could he forget it? The same voice that replaced him as Special Forces Commander. The same voice that rose above him. It can't be. Muramasa. Didn't you hypnotize him? He was stabbed by his own Zanpakuto. How is he alive? Muramasa was equally shocked. He's just a lieutenant. His spiritual power couldn't resist me. Kyoka Suigetsu was mine to control. Then. A chuckle. Tell me. When did you start to believe Kyoka Suigetsu ever belonged to you? A soft, hypnotic voice broke the tension. Shattered. Kyoka Suigetsu. The air cracked. Like shattered glass. And there, emerging through the fragments, stood Aizen. One hand holding his Zanpakuto, calm, Unharmed, utterly flawless. Aizen? You're alive? That's impossible. You should have been. I was always beside you, Aizen replied coldly. I never left. No. No way. This is. Koga stumbled back. Muramasa was equally stunned. Kyoka Suigetsu. I hypnotized you. I saw you fall. You were supposed to be dead. When? Aizen's voice was calm. Did you start thinking Kyoka Suigetsu had ever been controlled by you? You thought you had control? You were never even in a game. He turned to Koga. And you, too. Both of them were trembling. What is this? This isn't real. This can't be. Koga took several steps back. The reality before him was unraveling, and he had no way to explain it. Everything was under the control of the Sosuke brothers. He wasn't a player. He wasn't even a piece. He was just a puppet. Dancing on strings. And now, those strings were tightening. A suffocating pressure rose in his chest. One that spoke of absolute despair. Chapter 71, I can't hypnosis. Koga. Seeing that Koga was shaken, Muramasa immediately turned his gaze and locked onto Ain and Aizen, his voice cold and sharp. It doesn't matter why you're here. As long as I hypnosis your Kyoka Suigetsu again. This time, Yamamoto Genryu's Ishigakuni isn't around. Neither are the other captains of the 13th Division of Imperial Guards. Just hypnosis the Zanpakuto of you two brothers. This time, it'll be easy for me. Muramasa understood. To stabilize Koga's mental state, he had to show that he could still hypnosis the Zanpakuto of the Ain brothers. Especially now, with no one else interfering. Right. Whatever it takes. As long as I take control of your Zanpakuto, nothing else matters. After hearing this, Koga clutched onto the words like a drowning man clutching at driftwood, suppressing the growing panic in his chest. Bunkai. With a sharp cry, Muramasa stepped forward, attempting to invade the inner world of the Ain brothers and forcibly instill the thought of betray your master into their Zanpakuto. Bunkai? Seeing Muramasa invade his spiritual world, a faint smirk flashed across Ain's eyes behind his glasses. He didn't resist. He let Muramasa barge in. You want to meet Kafuin that badly? Then go ahead. Just don't regret it. Your name is Kafuin, right? The relationship between Zanpakuto and Shinigami should be equal. No, even higher. Because everything about a Shinigami comes from you. So, instead of submitting to Ain, make him submit to you. As the scenery twisted, Muramasa stepped into a realm split between pure white and pitch black. Even the sun in the sky radiated both light and darkness. At the center of the realm sat a crimson statue. Eyes mismatched in black and white. A divine dragon curled atop a peak, gazing down on Muramasa with immense majesty. Knowing this was Ain's Zanpakuto, Kafuin, he immediately activated his Banchi, attempting to force hypnosis on her. Are you done talking? Kafuin looked down at Muramasa with complete indifference. Muramasa was stunned. He nodded instinctively. Get out. With a thunderous roar, the entire world flipped upside down. The previously still black and white world now spun chaotically. Sometimes shrouded in darkness, other times blazing with sun. As black and white spun, Muramasa realized. His body was moving backward. No. It wasn't just him. Time itself was rewinding. Who do you think I am? Even Kyoka Suigetsu wouldn't dare act recklessly with me. And you? A mere illusion-type Zanpakuto, trash like gravel. You dare show off your hypnosis to me? Muramasa faintly heard this voice before reality twisted. He snapped back, realizing he was still standing beside Koga. As if nothing had happened. As if the entire invasion of Ain's spiritual world had been a hallucination. But the fear and disorientation in his heart were real. He looked at Ain involuntarily. Just then, as if on cue, Ain turned and met his eyes. There was amusement in that gaze. And suddenly, Muramasa shivered. Even when he had faced Rajanjaku before, it hadn't made him feel like this. I couldn't hypnosis him. Fine. Then let's start with hypnosis Aizen's Zanpakuto. Pick the softest to deal with first. That was the rule of survival. After being thrown out of Kafuin's world, Muramasa didn't dare provoke Ain again. Instead, he dove straight into Aizen's world. Only to find the scenery hadn't changed. Still Sokioka Hill. Still the same grass, same sky. He never entered Aizen's spiritual world. He was locked out. First Kafuin kicked him out. Now Aizen's world refused to let him in. Muramasa stood frozen, overwhelmed by failure. His confidence cracked. Even Yamamoto's Rajanjaku. He had found a way to slip in. But here? He couldn't even find the door. Muramasa. What are you doing? Koga's irritated voice sounded. Clearly, seeing that Ain's Zanpakuto hadn't materialized made him anxious. I can't hypnosis their Zanpakuto. Muramasa finally spoke, bitter and defeated. His voice was hollow. Even Rijinjaka could be cracked with time. But Kofun and Kyokusuigetsu, they felt like absolute walls. What? Didn't you say all Zanpakuto would become your slaves? And now you tell me you can't even hypnosis too? Just two Shinigami. How can you fail? Koga was losing control, disbelief and rage flaring together. Ain's Zanpakuto might be controlling time. When she roared at me, I was thrown back to before I entered the spiritual space. I don't think her true nature is even a dark element Zanpakuto. Or maybe her Bankai form is completely different. Muramasa's voice dropped. Time? Koga froze. Controlling time in Soul Society wasn't unheard of. Keto forbidden arts. Like time stop. Existed. But Ain's Zanpakuto? Dark type? Now maybe time type? It didn't make sense. Can't deal with Ain? What about Aizen? Kyokusuigetsu's just a water element Zanpakuto. Not even the strongest. Don't tell me even a third-rate Zanpakuto like that is too much for you. Koga took a deep breath, forcing down his panic. Muramasa said nothing. He couldn't explain why Aizen's spiritual world rejected him. Not even Rijinjaka had done that. Don't embarrass your Zanpakuto, Koga. Aizen's voice rang out, calm and composed. For him, it's simply impossible. Also, my Zanpakuto isn't water type. I've been hiding that from you. Forgive me. Let me reintroduce myself. Aizen took a step forward, his eyes gleaming behind his glasses. I am Aizen Sosuke. My Zanpakuto is Kyokusuigetsu. Its ability is complete hypnosis. It controls all five senses. Sight, hearing, smell, touch, and spiritual perception. Shinigami or Zanpakuto, it doesn't matter. If you see Kyokusuigetsu even once, you fall into hypnosis forever. Now do you understand? At that moment, both Koga and Muramasa were struck dumb with horror. Aizen's words weren't exaggerated. They were terrifyingly real. And as illusion-type masters themselves, no one understood better than them what complete hypnosis meant. Chapter 72, Then. The Kuachiki clan? Illusion. Illusion. The strongest Zanpakuto. Your Kyokusuigetsu isn't a water type at all. It's an illusion type. Koga took a deep breath. When he looked at Aizen again, the arrogance and contempt in his eyes were gone. Too deep. These two brothers hid too deeply. Only now did he suddenly recall what his father-in-law, Kuachiki Jinrai, had warned him about. Neither of the Sosuke brothers are simple. Even Aizen Sosuke, who Koga once thought only rose through Ain's protection and Yamamoto Genri Uzai's favor, who snatched his special forces captain position, was a terrifying existence. So it's not that I failed to invade your spiritual world. You made me believe I failed. Muramasa's eyes flickered with realization, though his expression was extremely unpleasant. As an illusion-type Zanpakuto himself, he had only ever hypnotized others. Never once had he been the one under hypnosis. But now, facing the strongest illusion type, Kyokusuigetsu, he was defeated completely. Hypnotized without even realizing it. That's correct. Aizen smiled softly, calm and unhurried. He didn't mind patience or hiding in the shadows. But after suppressing himself for so long, it felt nice to take a breath of fresh air. That's why they let Koga and Muramasa perform this little act. Not to manipulate them. Just to satisfy themselves. You two really know how to hide. Deceiving everyone. Then Koga's expression suddenly changed as he stared at Aizen in disbelief. Wait. Aizen, you? Yes. The captains and vice-captains of the 13th Division of Imperial Guards, the officers of the 1st and 5th Divisions, all of them are under Kyokusuigetsu's complete hypnosis. Just like you two. Aizen's gaze held nothing but calm pride, as if he had everything in the palm of his hand. I see. From beginning to end. All of it was within your control. You did all of this just to force me out of the 13th Division of Imperial Guards and eliminate me. Koga's expression twisted as countless moments and words from Kuachiki Jinrai echoed in his mind. Words he had dismissed before. Twisted by ambition, drowned out by jealousy. Now, they all made sense. Especially one sentence: not every Shinigami is Ain, and not every younger brother is Aizen. This pair of brothers is terrifying. Just as Hiroko Shinji was removed from his position as captain of the 5th Division and replaced by Aizen, the same pattern had played out again. With him as the victim. Don't flatter yourself. If we truly wanted you dead, one swing of the sword would have been enough. You're not worth the effort of staging an entire play just for you, Koga. Ain chuckled. In truth, he was reluctant to kill Koga outright. After all, this chess piece still had value. Even in death, the name Koga could be used. Not me? Then. The Kuachiki clan? Koga wasn't stupid. After taking blow after blow, His mind began to awaken. His ambition stirred again. At the very least, he wasn't clueless. He could guess part of the brothers' true goal. Why? Realizing that he might have just been used as a tool against the Kuachiki family, Koga couldn't understand. Why target them? As a member of the family for over 50 years, he knew the secrets. The four great noble houses weren't as simple as they appeared. No wonder you gave up the name Kuachiki. It seems Jinrai never truly saw you as part of the family. He didn't even tell you about the attack on us. Ain feigned surprise, glancing at the stunned Koga. Talents within the records of the Shinigami Academy fall into two categories. The first are people like me and my brother. Born with incredible spiritual pressure and the potential to stand at the top. The second are lucky ones. Not particularly outstanding, but possessing fragments of the Soul King, letting them pretend to be geniuses. Now, do you understand? Aizen's tone was light as he adjusted his glasses. But Koga was still blank. He couldn't understand. Then I'll make it clearer. To Jinrai, you were never a son-in-law. You were a vessel. Just a holder of a Soul King fragment. As long as you had use, he let you live. The moment you lost value, he would extract the fragment to pave the way for his grandson. Byakuya Kuachiki. Ain shook his head slightly. His words stabbed deep into Koga's heart. Fragment of the Soul King? Byakuya Kuachiki. No wonder. No wonder he married me to his daughter, brought me into the Kuachiki family, gave me their name. So from the beginning, it was just for Muramasa and a Soul King fragment. A disposable tool. Koga's body trembled, his expression twisting with rage and heartbreak. He had known bits and pieces about the Soul King, and the fragments scattered across the world. But he had never connected it to himself. Actually, you should thank us. If not for us, you wouldn't have even had the chance to be yourself before death. Even if it's just for a few minutes. Aizen ended the conversation with a touch of cold kindness. You think you can kill me? Koga's face contorted with madness. He looked like a beast driven into a corner. Ready to lash out. Good. Very good. After 50 years. You finally opened your eyes. Aizen's smile was full of appreciation. This was the real Koga. Not the leashed dog of the Kuachiki clan. I wasn't wondering if I could kill you. I've already done it. Ain's voice was calm. Big talk. Koga roared and gripped his Zanpakuto. Then his expression froze. Splat. A sharp pain exploded through his shoulder, blood spraying like a fountain as a deep, jagged wound tore across his chest and shoulder blade. Scarlet streaks stained Muramasa's face beside him. I told you. You were already cut. You just didn't see it. Ain stood behind Koga, glancing back calmly. Koga. Muramasa's face twisted in panic. You keep watching Aizen. But I'll deal with Ain. Koga gritted his teeth through the pain, shoved Muramasa back, and raised his Zanpakuto. Humiliation. Pain. Betrayal. He forgot fear. He only wanted revenge. He wouldn't escape. He would die fighting. Hate me? Good. Come at me. This time, I'll do you a favor. And help you raise your blade. Ain smiled faintly. As Koga approached, he calmly brushed aside his hori, revealing the Zanpakuto at his waist. Chapter 73. How can Soul Society even allow it to exist? Aren't you going to help your master? Don't worry, I won't kill you. A fight that ends in a single moment isn't even worth watching. Besides, there's no opponent in Soul Society who can make both of us draw our blades at the same time. Aizen spoke calmly, hands tucked in his sleeves, while Muramasa stood tensely in front of him with a drawn sword. Do you think I'd believe that, Aizen? Though Aizen declared he wouldn't interfere, Muramasa stayed locked onto him, refusing to lower his guard. He obeyed Koga's command without hesitation, eyes never leaving Aizen's form. After all, both he and Koga had just been toyed with by Kyoka Suigetsu's illusions not long ago. Who could possibly believe him now? Ain, don't underestimate me. On the opposite side, Koga gripped his Zanpakuto tightly, his spiritual pressure bursting forth like raging tides. The pressure stirred the ground beneath him. Stones cracked, dust lifted, the atmosphere vibrated. Hado number 57, Earth Avalanche. With a loud chant, flames erupted at the tip of Koga's blade, forming a blazing red sphere like a miniature sun. The fireball tore through the air, roaring toward Ain. You know, it's not that I'm underestimating you. It's just I don't see you at all. Ain's eyes never turned toward the incoming fireball. Instead, he lifted his head to look at the sun hanging high in the Soul Society sky. It's noon. The moment those words fell, a blinding golden pillar of light shot down from the heavens, engulfing Ain entirely. His white captain's hori shimmered in gold, radiating divine brilliance. Hiss. The heat beneath him instantly turned stone to molten red, smoke curling up as the earth melted underfoot. And yet Ain made no move. He simply stood, and his presence alone caused the atmosphere to burn. The sheer spiritual pressure, oppressive, scorching, divine, made even Aizen, watching from the sidelines, feel a chill crawl down his spine. It was the same pressure he'd once felt only from Yamamoto Genryuzai. What? What is this power? Aizen's glasses reflected the radiant golden flare, and even he was momentarily stunned. He had known that Aizen's Zanpakuto was the strongest dual nature type. Of both light and darkness. But this was the first time he had ever seen it unleashed. Bathed in that golden light, Aizen stood like a sun god, shining over Soul Society. Aizen turned toward the incoming fireball. He didn't draw his Zanpakuto. He didn't raise a hand. He simply blew. Flew. Like blowing out a candle. The roaring fireball, bursting with heat and spiritual pressure, fizzled in an instant. Disintegrating midair with a puff of smoke. What? What kind of ability is this? Koga's expression twisted in disbelief. One moment he thought he understood. Aizen's Zanpakuto was darkness-based. Then Muramasa had claimed it could manipulate time. And now it appears to be the embodiment of the sun itself. He couldn't grasp it. He couldn't read Aizen's power at all. Didn't I already tell you? Zanpakuto, Kafun. The strongest in both light and darkness. Aizen slowly unsheathed his sword. Shike, Throne of Heaven, Rule of One. The moment he spoke, the blade in his hand began glowing like a divine relic. Blazing with golden heat, brighter than the sun itself. Aizen, still watching calmly, narrowed his eyes. So that's what it is. Kafun. Is both light and dark. If the shining version's strongest Shikai is Rule of One, then doesn't the dark version also have its own ultimate Shikai ability? A gleam of interest sparked in Aizen's eyes. Far stronger than I imagined. A Zanpakuto like this. How can Soul Society even allow it to exist? Koga swallowed his fear and raised his Zanpakuto. He wasn't giving up. Bakudo number 26, present hiding mask. Dark shadows burst from beneath his feet, splitting into dozens of tendrils that lashed out to bind Aizen's shadow. At the same time, a cold swept in. Koga raised his Zanpakuto high, unleashing a freezing blast of spiritual energy. In mere seconds, the surrounding terrain began to freeze. The slopes outside Sokioka Hill now buried beneath frost and snow. A white dragon of frost lunged at Aizen. Better than that fireball earlier, Aizen said, his tone casual. But still. He raised his left hand. Only one finger extended. Boom. A deafening impact. With just one finger, Aizen stopped the giant frost dragon in its tracks. The blizzard froze around him, unmoving, trembling. Then that finger touched the ice. FSH. The frost shattered and evaporated instantly, golden heat melting it into steam with a single touch. Had enough? ZT. Dozens of golden beams descended from above, like piercing lasers. Firing at Aizen in rapid succession. Boom. A tremendous explosion erupted. A beam of concentrated spiritual pressure enveloped Aizen entirely. That's the price for looking down on me. Aizen Sosk. Standing at a distance, Koga glared coldly at the tower of spiritual pressure light shooting into the sky. You should have listened. A calm voice echoed from within the golden pillar. Then shh. The beam split down the middle, like curtains pulled back for royalty. Aizen stepped out, completely unharmed. He raised his blade. Please refer to me properly. From now on, it's Captain Aizen. He lifted his sword skyward. Boom. The moment the blade fell, a cataclysm descended. Golden sword pressure rained down like a divine storm, tearing through the landscape of the execution ground. Bakudo number 81, Danku. Koga's face froze in terror. He abandoned chanting and force-cast a high-level Bakudo, creating a massive energy wall of splitting void in front of him. My Danku can block Hado number 89, Tsuki Kanoo. One sword shouldn't be a problem. He tried to reassure himself. But... crack. A sharp splintering echoed out. Hairline fractures webbed across the Danku wall like a shattered mirror. The golden sword beam hadn't even fully landed yet. Koga's breath caught in his throat. No. Muramasa's eyes widened. No longer caring about Aizen, he dashed to Koga's side, blade raised to intercept. Boom. The wall of splitting void shattered completely. The golden sword wave descended like a tsunami, engulfing both Shinigami and Zanpakuto in an endless sea of light. Chapter 74, Even After You Die Kuachiki Koga, Will Live on Clang. With a single cut, Aizen returned his Zanpakuto into its sheath. It was as if he was telling the world. Kuachiki Koga. Muramasa. This pair that once made the entire 13 division of Imperial Guards uneasy, that even made Central 46 tremble in fear, was worth only one strike from him. No more. Pada. As the towering dust slowly settled, a vast and bottomless ravine split across the execution grounds, carved open by that single swing. The Sokioka Hill. Now divided into two halves. Ko.ga. A hoarse voice, barely audible over the wind, escaped into the air. Muramasa, his body torn nearly in two from shoulder to waist, was lying at the very edge of the chasm, bleeding out in silence. And right behind him, Kuichiki Koga knelt on one knee. A savage, gaping wound ran diagonally from his neck to his abdomen, blood gushing endlessly from the deep slash. It was clear that if Muramasa hadn't shielded him with his own body, the blade would have sliced straight through his skull. Even if he survived by sheer luck, the injury was unquestionably fatal. Unless Anohana Retsu arrived immediately. Or unless Inoue Orihime had been born centuries earlier. Otherwise, it was a death sentence. Alive? Ayan looked down calmly. TSK. I intended to split you in two. Seems the cut was a little shallow after all. Koga-kun. You're really making this difficult for me. I promised to kill you properly. And yet you insist on surviving. His words were plain, but his right hand rose slowly. Spiritual pressure gathered like a rising tide. Vast, and suffocating. You can't kill me. Koga's voice suddenly cracked, urgent and fearful. He believed Ayan was about to draw his blade again. And panic set in. He hadn't become Captain Commander yet. Hadn't ruled over the Soul Society. And now he was to die a traitor. Reduced to a stepping stone beneath the feet of the Sosuke brothers? Unacceptable. That's funny. Why can't I kill you? Ayan raised an eyebrow, amused. Didn't you loudly proclaim before Genri Uzai Yamamoto that you'd capture me alive and bring me back to Sairi Ai? Was that not a Kyokusuagetsu illusion as well? If you kill me now, aren't you breaking your own word? Scrambling for a lifeline, Koga rattled off anything that might save him. And you know full well why Kuichiki Jinrai made me his son-in-law. If you kill me now, it means you're going against the Kuichiki clan's plan. That's the head of the four noble houses we're talking about. Their reach. Far beyond your imagination. Keep me alive. I'll take the blame for all this, bear every sin, even serve beneath you. You've seen Muramasa's power. He may not threaten you, but against the other captains, he's a nightmare. His voice, once proud, now begged. Full of shame and desperation. But he was right about one thing. The Sosuke brothers would never bend their knees to anyone. Not Yamamoto, not Central 46, not even the Soul King. I appreciate your concern for the two of us, Ayan said with a chuckle. But don't worry. Even after you die. Your name, Kuichiki Koga, will live on. Someone else will assume your identity. He'll carry your legacy. Until the name Koga no longer serves any purpose. As he spoke, a dark figure slowly emerged from the woods in the distance. You're Kaname Tosen. Even in his wounded state, Koga recognized the figure instantly. A fellow student of the Spiritual Arts Academy. He knew every name, especially someone who'd once crossed the four noble houses. That blind man, Kaname Tosen. Lord Ayan. Lord Aizen. Tosen ignored Koga's gaze entirely, bowing respectfully before the two brothers. So that's it. Kyokusuagetsu's hypnosis requires a visual ceremony. But Tosen is blind. No matter how powerful the illusion. He can't see it. So, he was your hidden card all along. Either to be disposed of, or to serve your cause. Koga's heart sank in realization. And with that, everything clicked into place. Ayan didn't just plan to kill him. He planned to replace him. And Kyokusuagetsu's illusion would make sure no one noticed. Even his death had already been accounted for. He remembered now. That passing comment from Ayan. Kuichiki Jinrai once sent someone to assassinate us. The next target is Kuichiki Jinrai. Then the entire Kuichiki clan. No. Koga thought with rising dread, their ambitions don't end with Kuichiki. They want far more. Don't underestimate Jinrai, he shouted hoarsely. And don't underestimate the Kuichiki clan. Do you know how they surpassed the Tsunayashiro clan to become the head noble house? Kill me and you'll regret it. You'll help us, won't you? Ayan now stood right in front of him, his expression kind. But distant. Yes. Yes, I'll help you. Whether it's dealing with Jinrai or the entire Kuichiki family. Koga's voice trembled. He thought Ayan had changed his mind. He was overjoyed. And in his heart, he swore revenge. He would never forget this humiliation. Really? Then do me one last favor. Ayan's voice was gentle. Almost too gentle. Anything. I'll do it. As long as I live. SHHK. A clean sound of flesh pierced by steel. Koga's eyes widened in disbelief. He slowly looked down. A Zunpacto blade. Ayan's blade. Was buried in his chest, directly through his heart. Why? Blood spilled from his lips as he looked up at Ayan in horror. Didn't you say you'd help me? This is the help I need. You promised, didn't you? Don't tell me you're going back on your word now. With a casual flick, Ayan pulled his blade from Koga's chest. The blood dripped like crimson tears. Yet the sword remained clean, polished, and unblemished. An. You. Koga's bloodshot eyes blazed with fury, hate, disbelief. But his words never finished. The light in his eyes faded into ash. And with that, Kuichiki Koga, traitor and puppet of a noble house, died beneath An's blade. Silently. Chapter 75, and this is my gift to you. Truly pitiful. To think that with the backing of the Kuichiki family, he could ascend beyond his station. Yet he forgot one truth. It is not the name of the Kuichiki family that determines your worth, but the power of your own Zanpakuto. And of Muramasa. Aizen's gaze lingered briefly on the motionless body of Kuichiki Koga. His spiritual pressure gradually fading into the wind. Before sweeping calmly toward Muramasa. A truly unique Zanpakuto. Even though his Shinigami has died, he continues to exist independently. What a pity. You chose the wrong wielder. Seeing the faint, flickering spiritual light still pulsing within Muramasa, Aizen felt a hint of regret. In his eyes, had Muramasa been wielded by a different Shinigami. By someone worthy. His potential would have soared far beyond this. Even someone like Shun Sakuraku could have drawn out his strength in ways that Koga never could. You seem fond of that blade, Aizen. Aim chuckled, catching the flicker in his brother's expression. Like it? More like. I find it a tragedy. Zanpakuto of the illusion department are already rare enough within the Soul Society. If my Kyoka Suigetsu is the most powerful of the illusion type, then Muramasa is undoubtedly the second. The blade is a masterpiece. The Shinigami, however, was not. Aizen spoke flatly. If it were you, Ain asked with interest, how far could you take it? Aizen didn't answer. He merely tilted his head up slightly, eyes drifting toward the heavens above the Soul Society. His meaning was clear. The throne of heaven. Aizen, do you remember what day it is? Ain's tone softened slightly, shifting the topic. Today is your birthday. Aizen didn't respond. Not in the slightest. Not with his eyes, not with his expression. Nothing. Clearly, he either didn't care for such dates, or had long since stopped remembering them. You may forget. You may not care. But your older brother won't. How could I let your birthday pass without a proper gift? As Ain finished, he turned toward Muramasa, who still stared at him with eyes full of bitter hatred. He raised his Zanpakuto. Do you know why I chose Koga? Do you know why I acted today? Not because the timing was convenient, but because today is your birthday. And this is my gift to you. The moment he finished, an oppressive black mist surged from his blade. It devoured the surrounding light, spreading out like a suffocating curtain. Dark cover. In an instant, the black fog unfurled into a veil that swallowed both Muramasa and Koga. After several moments, the curtain lifted and rose skyward. When it cleared, Koga's body remained lifeless and whole. But Muramasa had vanished. In his place, a Zanpakuto wrapped in dense black mist hovered where the fog had once been. Clang. Aim slid his blade back into its sheath with quiet finality. Then, with a casual wave, the black-wrapped Zanpakuto rose slowly into the air and floated toward Aizen. This is truly unexpected. Dark Kafuen possesses the ability to seize another Shinigami's Zanpakuto. Aizen's brows furrowed as his eyes narrowed sharply behind the rim of his glasses. He understood everything instantly. Who was he? The only man in Soul Society who could match Gizuku Rahara in intellect. He didn't need to see the details. Just from what Ain had said, he'd already unraveled the entire technique. Your Zanpakuto has been delivered. Please confirm receipt. Ain watched the ripples of astonishment on Aizen's normally tranquil face. He smirked, clearly satisfied. This wasn't a feigned surprise. It was real. Because a power like this had never existed in Soul Society before. Why not keep it for yourself? A Zanpakuto that can hypnosis other Zanpakuto. Its utility should be immense. Even for you. Aizen didn't immediately reach for it, instead choosing to ask the obvious question. Didn't I just say? It's your birthday. And I'm your brother. What kind of brother would steal your gift? Ain shrugged casually. Besides, Muramasa's abilities, while unique, were redundant to him. Dark Kafuen's sealing power already allowed him to control other Zanpakuto. What Muramasa added was merely the luxury of illusions layered on top. But that was an art best wielded not by him but by a strategist. Someone like Aizen. Or perhaps Gizuku Rahara. Muramasa had proven a simple truth: if a Shinigami lacked skill or vision, even the most powerful blade became wasted potential. In contrast, Ain's Zanpakuto was prideful. It didn't refuse to seal other Zanpakuto. It simply refused to acknowledge those that weren't worthy. Only the best. Ryujin Jakka. Hiren Mauru. Kyoka Suigetsu. Those could be taken. But Muramasa? Too weak. Too common. He was outright rejected. Aizen remained silent, but his eyes flickered with unusual light. A rare emotional disturbance shook his core. Take it. Muramasa's true potential wasn't even revealed by Koga. He used it for basic hypnosis. Controlling others Zanpakuto. But that's only the beginning. There's more to his Shikai. His Bankai. All left unexplored. Only in your hands, Aizen, can he reach that pinnacle. Aizen didn't wait for a response. He pressed the mist-shrouded Zanpakuto directly into Aizen's arms. And indeed, Aizen was the one destined for illusion. He needed no tricks. No crutches. He was already a master. Even with just Kyoka Suigetsu's Shikai, he could make everyone kneel. Bankai? Unnecessary. But 2 blades of illusion? Unstoppable. Aizen looked up. He understood his brother's intentions. This elaborate speech was also he'd accept Muramasa without hesitation. Without guilt or pride. With resolve. He simply extended his hand and took hold of Muramasa's hilt. Kai. As his fingers wrapped around it, the black mist began to peel away. The blade shimmered. Cleansed of all memory, all past. What remained was raw, dormant potential. A sealed Zanpakuto. Ready to be written upon. Aizen's essence to imprint upon it. To be reborn. Chapter 76. Now, I can only describe it as despair. So this is the power of Dark Kafuen. Capable of taking another Shinigami's Zanpakuto? By slaying the Shinigami, severing the soul bond between them and their Zanpakuto, then using the power of the Kafuen to erase everything and restore it to a sealed state. And finally, with the help of a new master, overwrite the sealed blade with the soul essence of that Shinigami. Effectively making it their own. The moment Aizen held Muramasa in his hand, he calmly dissected the process. Through perception alone, he analyzed the complete mechanism of Kafuen's Zanpakuto capturing ability. Even he couldn't help but marvel. Zanpakuto were born from the essence of their master's soul. In other words, everything Kafuen could do stemmed from Aizen's own soul. From light to darkness. From suppression to erasure. From rebirth to gifting. All of it. Aizen's creation. Boom. As Aizen slightly gripped the handle, spiritual pressure surged into the blade. In the next instant, Muramasa erupted into radiant stardust, swirling around Aizen like a storm of light. Then, it all began. Looks like the transfer is complete. Aizen stood there, watching with genuine curiosity. This was the first time he had captured another Shinigami's Zanpakuto. And the first time he gave one away. Naturally, he was interested in the process. After a moment, the stars of spiritual pressure faded. Well? How is it? Aizen looked over and asked with a faint smile. Kyoka Suigetsu beat the newborn Muramasa to the ground. Muramasa refused to submit. So he was beaten again. Still refused. Aizen's expression was subtle. Slightly odd, as though he wasn't sure whether to laugh or frown. Clearly. He'd just witnessed 2 Zanpakuto fighting it out in his inner world. Ha 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 ha. That makes perfect sense. Like master, like blade. Koga was arrogant on the outside, insecure on the inside. He thirsted for power and control. Wanted to see the noble Shinigami bow before him. So, he gave birth to Muramasa. A Zanpakuto capable of hypnotizing Shinigami. One that bowed to his will. Aizen chuckled freely. But you were born in the dirt, but your heart defies the heavens. You disdain Shinigami from your bones. And so, Kyoka Suigetsu was born. A Zanpakuto that accepts only submission. That bows to none. Now that I've reset Muramasa to factory state, Aizen continued, and had you imprint your soul onto him again. Of course his personality changed. He still refuses to bow to Kyoka Suigetsu, even knowing Kyoka is the strongest illusion type. But it doesn't matter now. From today forward, there is no strongest or second place between the two. Kyoka Suigetsu and Muramasa. Both are your Zanpakuto. Both are you. 2 blades, 1 soul. Just like Zangetsu and Ichigo inside Ichigo Kurosaki. Both separate, and yet whole. Kyoka Suigetsu in my hands is the strongest. Muramasa in my hands is also the strongest. Illusion is twin blades. There's no comparison anymore. Aizen nodded slightly. That was the truth. They were both his Zanpakuto. There was no rank. Just different names. Lord Aizen. If I may be so bold. Tosen Kaname suddenly stepped forward, unable to hold back his awe any longer. Though blind, his spiritual pressure perception was sharper than most. And with nothing hidden from his ears, he understood perfectly what had transpired. Aizen captured Muramasa. Aizen received his second Zanpakuto. Now, he held in his hands the twin blades of the strongest illusion type ever born in Soul Society. And Tosen. He wanted to see it. To witness its Shikai. Would you grant me the honor to witness your release? Aizen looked toward him with that same serene smile. Of course. But what he said next sent a chill down the spine. Shatter. Kyokusuagetsu. Whisper. Demon Blade, Muramasa. The moment he uttered the release commands, a torrent of divine spiritual pressure erupted from his body. Boom. A colossal pillar of spiritual pressure shot toward the sky like a beacon of godhood. And as the light engulfed the land, the two Zanpakuto at his waist vanished. In their place, two new blades emerged in each of his hands. Shikai form. Kyokusuagetsu looked nearly the same. Curved blade, pale green hilt. But Muramasa had changed entirely. A straight-edged blade, its hilt trapped in deep violet. The aura it gave off was chilling, yet majestic. Nothing like what it had been in Koga's hands. What do you think? Aizen asked calmly, holding Muramasa in his left and Kyokusuagetsu in his right. If your presence before was terrifying, now, I can only describe it as despair. Tosen Kaname shuddered as he spoke. Though his eyes were blind, his soul felt as though it had plummeted into a chasm of black void, never to climb out again. But then, he turned his attention toward Ain. He hadn't moved. Hadn't even drawn his blade. No pressure. No aura. Yet, facing him made Kaname feel even worse. Despair beyond terror. A dread so deep, you couldn't even lift your sword to resist. What Tosen didn't know was that as Aizen spoke to him, he had quietly entered Tosen Kaname's inner world. That was the new ability born from Shikai, the illusion-type twin blades. Absolute access. Silently invading any Shinigami's mental space. And in that spiritual world, Aizen said nothing. He simply glanced at Suzumoshi, Tosen's Zanpakuto's spirit, and turned to leave. But what happened next was terrifying. Suzumoshi, without hesitation, kneeled down in reverence. Kneeling not to Tosen Kaname, but to Aizen. As if it had always been his Zanpakuto. A single glance. A single presence. That was enough to force his Zanpakuto to kneel. And Tosen remained oblivious. That is a king. Same Zanpakuto. Same Muramasa. But in Aizen's hands and in Koga's, they were not the same, not even close. Chapter 77, The sword isn't bad, is it? Sure enough. If the Shinigami is strong, the Zanpakuto is strong. A Zanpakuto of the illusion system can only be pushed to the ultimate level in the hands of a king. In the final analysis, Koga's capabilities as a Shinigami are limited, and he could only create Muramasa as the second best within the illusion type's Zanpakuto. But in Aizen's hands, after rewriting the soul essence, Muramasa immediately evolved on its original foundation. Not only did the release command change, but even the Shikai name became different. The same goes for Kyokusuagetsu. After incorporating the power of the newly reborn demon sword Muramasa, it too underwent enhancement. Although the Shikai name remains unchanged, the release command has been altered. Tosen Kaname didn't know that Suzumoshi had changed, but Ain had secretly entered the spiritual world, glanced at hypnosis-bound Suzumoshi, and helped it change its master. This couldn't help but make him sigh. In the world of Shinigami, it truly does revolve around hybrids. Whether it's Zanpakuto or Shinigami, the more mixed they are, the more powerful and limitless their potential becomes. Just like Ichigo, who clearly had only one parent, but possesses Hollow, Quincy, Shinigami, and Fullbearing traits. Each ability is stacked with various bloodlines. And here Aizen merely fused Kyokusuagetsu with the demon blade Muramasa, not even incorporating powers beyond Shinigami. And his strength immediately skyrocketed. Not only did he gain dual swords of illusion type, but their abilities also significantly increased. After Shikai, even his spiritual pressure became far stronger than before. Alright, it's time for you to come out. You might feel a little wronged. Endure it a bit, okay? After lightly testing Suzumoshi's hypnosis, Aizen smiled gently and asked in a tone that sounded polite but brooked no refusal. Yes, Lord Aizen. I don't feel wronged. On the contrary, I've been looking forward to it. Because, it is my honor to personally take part in purging the source of Soul Society's corruption. Upon hearing this, Tosen Kaname immediately knelt, his voice full of reverent excitement. At this moment, he was completely immersed in the joy of avenging his fallen friends and gradually dismantling the noble houses and system of Soul Society step by step. He had no idea that his Zanpakuto, Suzumoshi, had already fallen under Aizen's hypnosis and become a toy in the hands of the master he loyally served. Let alone realize that Suzumoshi, once loyal to him, had already changed allegiance and could become the very weapon to end his life at any moment. Puff. When Aizen heard this, the smile at the corner of his mouth grew wider. He reached out and gently pressed Tosen Kaname's forehead, and spiritual pressure rippled out like a pulse. Pada. Tosen Kaname only felt his consciousness grow rapidly drowsy, and the next moment he collapsed softly at Ain's feet. Brother, your Kafuin is also a soul-slaughtering dual sword. After knocking Tosun Kaname unconscious with a casual gesture, Aizen asked suddenly, though his tone was already full of certainty. Yes. She has both light and dark aspects, though she usually prefers to act as one, so, she can be a Zanpakuto where light and darkness are integrated. Or a Zanpakuto where light and darkness are separated. Since Aizen had seen through it, Aizen no longer concealed it. He unsheathed his Zanpakuto in front of him, without announcing the Shikai name or release command, and the blade separated on its own into two swords. One was golden throughout, shaped like a blade of light, exuding boundless sharpness. Even a slight tremor would slice the air around it, making one instinctively fearful. The other was pitch black, like a blade of darkness, exuding terrifying gravitational force. It simply floated in the air, yet any light passing near it would be drawn in and unable to escape. Light and darkness is one, the dual swords of light and shadow. And this is only the Shikai form. What astonishing power! Brother, this is why you went to so much trouble to capture Muramasa and give him to me. You even considered that I might reject him because of my nature, so you gave him to me as a birthday gift. Aizen glanced at Kafuen, first praising them, then shifting the subject. You hold two swords. Each the strongest in the light and dark categories. While I only wield Kyoka Suigetsu of the illusion system. Jealous? No. My ambition isn't limited to such things, and more importantly, there's no little brother in me who feels jealousy or resentment. So, to spare my pride, you didn't need to hide your strength on purpose. Or go so far as to use such a roundabout method to hand me Muramasa. He looked into Aizen's eyes. You're overthinking it. An elder brother simply gave his younger brother a birthday gift. No need to add layers to it. By the way, the sword isn't bad, is it? Aizen's gaze rippled slightly upon hearing this, but quickly returned to calm. When he had first crossed into this world, he hadn't yet discovered the ability to cultivate independently. Or rather, he hadn't even grasped Zanpakuto, spiritual pressure, sword art, hand-to-hand combats, flash steps and Kidou, and thus had no capacity for self-cultivation. In the chaotic District 80, he and Aizen could only rely on each other to survive. It was precisely because of that shared struggle at the edge of death that he understood, while Aizen presented himself as elegant, kind, and courteous. He was, in fact, cold, ruthless, and fiercely ambitious. And yet, Aizen still chose to treat him as a younger brother. After all, he himself was a transmigrator with no real sense of belonging to the Soul Society, Siri Itai, Shinigami, Quincy. Or even this world. Whether replacing the Soul King or overturning Siri Itai, even if Aizen sought to plunge the three realms into chaos. He didn't care. Not bad. After accepting the essence of my soul, Muramasa's release command and Shikai name both changed, and his Zanpakuto also evolved. It's a good thing. Aizen nodded, affirming the transformation of the demon sword Muramasa, and also acknowledging Aizen's power. Something bad? Aizen caught the subtle implication in Aizen's tone. The bad part is it's easy to become dependent on that power. Whether it's Kyoka Suigetsu or Muramasa, they are both of one soul. Once evolved through Shikai and Benkei, it's far too easy to become their subordinate. Just like Koga. Without Muramasa, he's nothing. Aizen didn't hide his thoughts and openly explained that he disliked being dependent on Zanpakuto. Aizen, your thinking is a bit extreme. A Zanpakuto is a product of your soul's essence. It's an extension of your soul. Just as your limbs are extensions of your body. Would you cut off your own arms or legs? As for saying you won't rely on Zanpakuto. That's admirable. A Shinigami shouldn't depend on Zanpakuto alone. Spiritual pressure, sword art, hand-to-hand combats, flash steps and Kidou. None should be neglected. Just like the heart, liver, spleen, lungs, kidneys, and brain. They are all indispensable. Aizen understood it all too well. No wonder Aizen, despite having Kyoka Suigetsu, rarely used it. Especially after obtaining the Hogyoku. Each time he grew stronger in soul and power, he used Kyoka Suigetsu less and less. At first, it was to put himself in danger and force the Hogyoku to assist his evolution, but later on. Even Kyoka Suigetsu was shattered by his bare hand. It turned out that Aizen had such tendencies even back then. Now, Aizen was slightly puzzled. Why do Shinigami with illusion-based Zanpakuto seem to have such unique habits? They seem to enjoy breaking their own Zanpakuto for no reason. Kuichiki Koga was like this. The first thing after being freed was to cut off Muramasa. Same with Aizen Sosuke. After his evolution, the first thing he did was destroy Kyoka Suigetsu. Chapter 78, I will always be your brother. Zanpakuto is an extension of the soul. The hands and feet are extensions of the torso. Is that so? Hearing Aizen's words, Aizen murmured quietly. Behind the lenses of his framed glasses, a sharp gleam flashed through his eyes. Let's go. I just put on a little show in front of the First Division and all the guard captains. If we don't return soon, it'll raise suspicion. Ain patted Aizen on the shoulder, then picked up Kosen disguised as the captured Koga and disappeared with a flash of flash steps. Brother, you said I overthink things. But aren't you the same? Even if I seek to stand at the peak, I've never forgotten one thing. I will always be your brother. Watching Ain's fading silhouette, Aizen thought to himself silently. He chuckled. Then he withdrew both Kyoka Suigetsu and the demon blade Muramasa, deactivating their Shikai states. The dual blades reverted into a single sealed Zanpakuto, which he sheathed with a composed motion. Afterward, he carefully erased all traces that might expose their presence. The Kido barrier he had quietly erected earlier vanished in silence. With a flicker of flash steps, Aizen darted away to catch up to Ain. He hadn't forgotten Anohana Retsu was currently using Kaido on what appeared to be a mere cloud of air. Although her five senses had been subjected to Kyoka Suigetsu's complete hypnosis, and everything she saw, heard, felt, and perceived would align with Aizen's illusions, he knew better than anyone. Anohana Retsu is not like ordinary Shinigami. Neither her vision nor her intuition could be underestimated. And since Aizen hadn't been present on the scene throughout, the longer he stayed away, the greater the chances that a misstep would be noticed. First Division, Assembly Hall under the command of Yamamoto Genryu's Ishigakuni, cleanup of the recent incident was mostly completed. The damage caused by the rebellion of the guard captains Zanpakutos, and the riots that followed, had largely been restored to order. However, the captains and lieutenants of the 13th Division of Imperial Guards had not yet dispersed. They stood assembled inside the Great Hall, awaiting Ain's return. It hadn't been ordered by Yamamoto himself. They remained voluntarily. This was their silent show of respect. After all, Ain had suppressed the entire Zanpakuto rebellion single-handedly. 12 captains and 13 lieutenants, not a single one missing, stood solemnly in formation. He's back. Yamamoto Genryu's slightly narrowed eyes opened with a flash. The rest of the captains and lieutenants simultaneously turned their gazes to the great doors of the meeting hall. Ain entered shortly after, carrying the unconscious Koga over his shoulder. He walked in calmly, unhurriedly, drawing all eyes as he approached. As expected. He's been captured? Kuichiki Jinrai's gaze immediately settled on the Koga Ain carried. He released a pulse of spiritual pressure to scan the prisoner. Detecting faint but present spiritual pressure, he finally let out a faint sigh of relief. As long as Koga wasn't dead, it wasn't a total loss. The former heir to the Kuichiki name may have been irredeemable, but the fragment of the Soul King embedded in him was still recoverable. Whether Koga would be executed or not didn't concern him much. As the head of the Kuichiki clan, Jinrai still held influence enough to guide the outcome. A Muramasa capable of hypnotizing all Zanpakuto and the genius Shinigami, Koga himself. And they couldn't even scratch Ain? Not even his captain's Haori was damaged. This guy is terrifying. Shun Sekiraku and Yukitake Joshiro weren't surprised that Ain had captured Koga and returned safely. What truly shook them was the fact that neither Muramasa nor Koga had left even a mark on him. Their minds involuntarily replayed hypothetical battle scenarios. Kido. Overwhelmed. Sword Dart. Crushed. Flash Steps. Outclassed. Hand-to-hand combat *S. Dominated. Spiritual Pressure. Oppressive. Zanpakuto. Overbearing. No matter how they envisioned it, the outcome was the same, Ain overpowering Koga in every aspect. The only variation was which combat skill he chose to do it with. There are only two types of geniuses in Soul Society. One is Ain. And the other is everyone else. Shiba Ishin stared at Ain and then down at the limp figure of Koga slung over his shoulder like a ragdoll. He couldn't help but let out a sigh. The Soul Society's history was so vast that even measuring it was nearly impossible. Throughout the ages, countless powerful Shinigami had been born. Even those hailed as once-in-a-century geniuses were as numerous as grains of sand along the Gang River. Even Yamamoto Genryu's was simply the strongest among thousands. If you went back far enough, there were other titans equal to him. Yet today, in front of all captains and lieutenants, Shiba Ishin made a bold declaration: there are only two types of geniuses. Ain, and everyone else. The weight of that evaluation was staggering. As expected. When Shiba's remarks spread across the room, the captains' expressions shifted, and murmurs spread among the lieutenants. But when their eyes returned to Ain, no one refuted it. Even Yamamoto Genryu's himself remained silent. Soon-to-be Squad Zero members like Shutara Senjimaru and Hikai Funkirio, as well as the first-generation Kinpachi, Anohana Yakiru, were no exceptions. They were scholars and warriors alike. Well read in the entire history of Sairi Itai, none could recall a single Shinigami with talent on par with Ain's. Ishin-sensei, don't think wearing a top hat's gonna save you from the bill. I helped you suppress Injutsu today, so you'd better leave me something behind tonight. Ain placed Koga and his Zanpakuto on the ground casually, breaking the heavy silence with a chuckle. I knew you wouldn't let me go home that easily. No problem. Tonight's meal's on me. Oh, and some good news. Aizen's fine. The blade missed his vitals. He'll be up and about in a week. Shiba Ishin grinned and waved it off. Alright, I'll pay the bill tonight. He didn't notice that the injured Aizen he mentioned was standing quietly beside Ayan, observing him with amusement sparkling behind his glasses. Silence. Yamamoto Genryuzai finally spoke, his tone grave. Captain Ayan, thank you for quelling the chaos. Siriite AI does not neglect those who contribute. You quelled the Zanpakuto rebellion and captured the criminal Koga alive. I will report this to Central 46, and appropriate rewards will be issued. But as his eyes drifted toward Koga, a cold shadow crossed his face, and the room's temperature dropped. As for the criminal Koga, his words trailed off, his voice pausing deliberately. As though weighing something. Or waiting. What a fox Kuachiki Jinrai is. He immediately recognized the meaning behind Yamamoto's hesitation and stepped out from the row of captains. Chapter 79. Then Central 46 listened to his verdict instead. Captain Commander, although the criminal Koga has been stripped of the Kuachiki name and expelled from our clan, he was once a member of the Kuachiki family and my son-in-law. His betrayal has shocked all of Siriite AI. I respectfully request that you execute Kuachiki Koga for his crimes. The Kuachiki family has produced such a disgrace. As the head of the family, I cannot avoid responsibility. It is inappropriate for me to continue leading the 6th Division. Please permit me to resign as captain of Squad 6 and return to the family estate to reflect on my failings. With just a few words, Kuachiki Jinrai effectively severed the Kuachiki family's ties with Koga and assumed responsibility in advance. Before Yamamoto Genryuzai Shigakuni could even pronounce judgment, Koga would be punished. Jinrai resigned. And returned home in disgrace. Everyone who could take the blame, took it. Everyone who could be punished, was punished. After all, it would be unreasonable to drag the entire Kuachiki family down because of a single rogue Shinigami who had once married into it. Siriite AI did not press the issue further. Except for the Shiba clan. No wonder the Kuachiki family managed to replace the Tsunayashiro clan as the head of the 4 great noble houses. Everyone thinks it's because of Koga and Muramasa. But in truth, it's because of Kuachiki Jinrai. Ayan silently admired Jinrai's methods. He understood clearly. In the past, the title of highest noble house belonged to the Tsunayashiro family. But now, the Kuachiki family had taken that title. Most nobles and 13 Division of Imperial Guards members believed it was thanks to Koga and the unique Zanpakuto Muramasa, which could suppress all others. But Ayan knew better. Koga and Muramasa were only tools, the real power behind the rise was Jinrai. Even if Koga was executed. Even if Byakuya, the heir, died. As long as Jinrai lived, the Tsunayashiro family wouldn't regain their place. Although Koga's rebellion is a grave offense, he is still not my own son. As for Squad 6, Captain Jinrai will temporarily resume command. When a suitable replacement is found, I will reassign the position. As for the criminal Koga, Yamamoto glanced at Jinrai, who subtly signaled with his eyes, acknowledging the situation and yielding. The captain commander decided to raise the blade high. But let it fall gently. It appeared as punishment. But in truth, nothing was punished. Even if a new candidate appeared, it would undoubtedly be Byakuya who would eventually take over the 6th Division. The other captains present saw through this as well, but they knew this was the limit. If Koga hadn't interfered with their Zanpakuto, even this resignation wouldn't have been necessary. The entire display was a political appeasement. Because Jinrai was not just a captain, he was the head of the Kuachiki family, and now, the most powerful noble in Seoul society. In accordance with Siriite AI law, Yamamoto finally said, I sentence Koga to blood burial. To be sealed for 3,000 years. Normally, punishing a noble affiliated with the Kuachiki family would require approval from Central 46, along with a full hearing. But only if Yamamoto Genryuzai was in the mood to wait. If he wasn't, then Central 46 would listen to his verdict instead. Clearly, Yamamoto was not pleased with Koga's role in the recent Zanpakuto rebellion. So Central 46 had no say. It's over, Shun Sakuraku muttered, shaking his head. A genius Shinigami, once shining so brightly. Now ended up like this. 3,000 years? Yukitik Joshiro sighed to himself. The captains and lieutenants present all understood. Koga's life was, for all intents and purposes, over. Execution wasn't necessary. Blood burial was worse than death. Sealed in total darkness. Unable to move his limbs. No contact with the outside world. He would grow old, waste away, and die alone. Forgotten in a hidden prison beneath Siriite AI? 3,000 years. A lifespan even most Shinigami wouldn't reach. Unless one was part of Squad 0, spiritual pressure usually dictated lifespan. And during the blood burial, Spiritual pressure couldn't grow. Not everyone could be like Aizen. Imprisoned in the deepest depths of Mukin, yet growing more powerful by the day. For Koga, only a broken body would remain. Koga. Jinrai muttered. Although Koga had been part of the family for over 50 years, and his loss saddened him, Jinrai quietly exhaled in relief. This outcome was acceptable. Execution was avoided, thanks to the Kuachiki name. Though he had already revoked it. And blood burial? A secret location, limbs immobile. It would make extracting the Soul King fragment from Koga's body much easier. That's how Kuachiki Jinrai operated. The noble who raised his clan to the top, and toppled the Tsunayashiro legacy. Today's meeting is over, Yamamoto declared. All captains may return to their duties. Captain Ayan, remain. As the verdict settled, captains and lieutenants departed one by one. Koga was handed over to the Onmitsu Kido for processing. Shiba Ishin gave Ayan a look and gestured as he passed. He'd go ahead to the restaurant and open a table. I'm sorry about what happened to Aizen, Yamamoto began quietly, once they were alone. His tone had lost its previous authority. I didn't expect Koga's ambitions to be so low. As the Kuachiki family's son-in-law, he still rebelled. All for a position in the Special Forces. If you wish, I can transfer Aizen back to Squad 5 immediately. For the first time, Yamamoto apologized. After all, it was to protect Aizen that Ayan had removed Hiroko Shinji from the captain's seat. Yamamoto feared Ayan might feel betrayed and take Aizen away from him. If one wishes to wear the crown, he must bear its weight. In the end, Aizen still lacks the strength needed to lead. Unless he's willing to stay under protection. He'll continue to face trials like today. Ayan gave a faint smile, brushing off Yamamoto's concern. He chose this path. We can protect him for a while. But not forever. Let him stay in Squad 1, and train with you, Principal. You think that way? The old man is relieved. Aizen needs more polishing. He'll grow faster here in Squad 1 than in Squad 5. Don't worry. Once he recovers, I'll personally train him in sword art, hand-to-hand combats, flash steps, and Kido. So he can catch up with you. And when the time comes, the two of you will be the first ever double captain guard Siri-eyed AI has ever seen. Yamamoto's heavy heart lifted at last, a small smile forming beneath his beard. As long as Ayan wasn't taking Aizen away, everything else could be worked out. He'd even made a silent promise. As soon as the captain's seat opened, Aizen would have it. Chapter 80, and how much he might one day wants to kill him. Captain of the Imperial Guard? If Aizen knew that the head captain held such high expectations for him, I think he'd be very pleased. After all, he often tells me how much he dreams of becoming the captain of the Imperial Guard. Ayan caught a glimpse of Yamamoto Genryu's Ishigakuni's rare bright smile and couldn't help glancing sideways at Aizen. Truly. It's a satisfying feeling to push the future king forward. He could already imagine it. Just how pleased Yamamoto Genryu's eye was now, how much he valued Aizen. How much he'd grow to admire him. And how much he might one day want to kill him. Is that so? Yamamoto's stern expression softened even further upon hearing that Aizen viewed the title of Captain of the Guard as a lifelong goal and motivation for self-discipline. A sense of pride rose in his heart. He had already made up his mind. Once Aizen returned to Squad 1, he would begin passing down everything he'd learned across the centuries. The conversation between the three was filled with ease and warmth. A rare atmosphere of harmony. 9th Division Barracks. The air was thick with tension, like the scent of gunpowder before a battle. Because Muguruma Kinsai, Love Akawa, and Atrabashi Rojiro. After experiencing the Koga rebellion and having their Zanpakuto suppressed by Ayan. Had begun to question Hiroko Shinji's claims that the Sosuke brothers were dangerous. Kensai, especially, had grown bold. He told Hiroko bluntly, it was time to let go of his prejudice. That statement was the last straw. Already depressed from losing the position of captain of Squad 5 and stripped of all former prestige overnight, Hiroko Shinji exploded. Kensai, what the hell is going on in your head? You're saying Brother Ayan is a good person? Just because he helped you suppress your Zanpakuto? Did you forget why Koga rebelled and became a criminal? Wasn't it because of Brother Aizen? In the assembly hall, Ayan didn't just make him lose the captaincy of the Special Forces. He couldn't even stay as Squad 6's third seat. He was demoted to an ordinary member of Squad 1. And Aizen? He straight up took Koga's position as captain of the Special Forces. Hiroko slammed the table. His golden hair flared wildly. He didn't know about Kyoka Suigetsu. But after hearing Kensai recount what had happened, he couldn't help but notice the similarity. How he lost Squad 5. How Koga lost the Special Forces. Too similar. Even more humiliating, Koga's downfall was worse than his own. So, even if it looked like Koga initiated the Zanpakuto rebellion, he remained convinced that it was all part of the Sosuke brothers' scheme. You're saying Brother Ayan's behind it all? Where's your proof? Hiroko, I get that you're bitter. But don't throw accusations without facts. Even if you can't prove it, at least talk sense. At the inauguration, there were 6 of us. 12 eyes. We all saw Koga insult Ayan during the ceremony and get stripped of his title by the head captain. Then later, during Aizen's appointment as vice captain of Squad 1 and captain of the Special Forces, Koga lost control again and got punished again. It wasn't some conspiracy. It was jealousy. Plain and simple. Kensai tried to stay calm, hoping Hiroko would finally drop the grudge. Kensai's right, Rojiro added. We all witnessed the same thing. You say Ayan caused Koga's fall. But all we saw was Koga interrupt the captain's inauguration repeatedly. And the Sosuke brothers? They didn't even fight back. Aizen even tried to mediate. Even if, somehow, Ayan orchestrated everything, Koga still provoked him first. And the positions of captain and vice captain were assigned directly by the head captain. Are you saying the brothers can manipulate Yamamoto Genryu's eye? Love Akawa crossed his arms. You're blaming the wrong person, Shinji. It's not fair. But still. Don't you think what happened to Koga is just like what happened to me? Hiroko muttered. Same outcome. Both incidents are tied to Ayan. Forget the facts for a second. Doesn't that feel suspicious to you? That line made everyone go silent. Forget the facts? Lisa, Mashiro, and the others looked at each other, all thinking the same thing. If not reason or truth, then what was Hiroko trying to use? Feelings? Hiroko and Koga had both gone after the Ayan brothers first. No one forced them. Ayan and Aizen had been minding their own business at the Spiritual Arts Academy when Hiroko picked a fight, demanding Aizen admit he was dangerous. Ayan defended his younger brother and ended up being forced into early graduation. At the inauguration, Ayan was composed. But Koga couldn't stop provoking him. Aizen got injured. Ayan still spared Koga. He showed strength and compassion. So who's in the wrong? What? You all think Brother Ayan is a good person, and I'm just the villain now. That's it? Hiroko's voice trembled in disbelief as he saw their reactions. That's not what we mean, Hokujin said softly. It's just Shinji, you and Koga can't keep bullying Aizen for no reason. He's already been stabbed, Lisa reminded him. Squad 4 is still treating him. Maybe you should give it a rest, Mashiro said more directly. Pick someone else to bother. Why is it always Ayan's younger brother? We're friends, she added. But don't expect us to just go along when you're twisting the truth and trying to gang up on Brother Ayan. Even if we did agree to help you fight. Who's to say we'd even win? Atrabashi Rojiro narrowed his eyes. You say Aizen's a bad guy? That Koga's the victim? But you're not making sense anymore, Shinji. If not for our long friendship, we'd have walked away long ago. As friends, you should trust me, not doubt me. Hiroko snapped, slamming the table. But before his hand landed, Sarugaki Hari. Who'd been silent all this time. Smashed a slipper straight into his face, sending him flying across the room. I trusted you once, she said coldly. When the academy warned me, I still helped you lure Shiba away. But I didn't blame you. Everyone makes mistakes. But this... You're picking fights, causing trouble, doubting everyone. She walked up with her other slipper raised high. It's time to stop, you idiot. You don't believe me? Hiroko shouted from the floor. I'm telling you. Ayan is not a good person. But when he looked around at Kensai, Love, Lisa, Mashiro, Rojiro, and Tori. All their expressions were the same. Their eyes held the same message, even if they didn't say it aloud. I don't believe you. Chapter 81, Noble Three-Piece Suit. Friend. Ayan and the others just staged a show to help you suppress your Zanpakuto, and somehow, that has already surpassed the friendship and trust we've built over 100 years. I see. Seeing that none of his friends believed him, Hiroko Shinji gave a bitter laugh. He didn't say another word. He simply stood up, rubbed the slipper print still embedded in his face, and walked out of the 9th Division barracks without looking back. Do you think Hiroko's lost it a little? Well, considering his Zanpakuto is a hallucination type, it's not exactly impossible. Might have scrambled his brain a bit too much. It's possible. I've heard there's a condition in the human world called persecution delusion. What he's showing lines up pretty well. Why don't we bring this up to Captain Anohana? You think she could cure it? In Siri Itai, no one's better at Kaido than Captain Anohana. If she can't do it, maybe we can try Captain Garyo. Everyone looked at each other with hesitation in their eyes. Believe him? How could they? But don't you believe him? If they said so, it'd just cause another pointless argument. And frankly, they were all tired of it. After a short deliberation, they decided to submit a referral for Hiroko Shinji to the 4th Division's psychiatric department. Their plan: find an opportunity to escort Hiroko there and let Anohana Retsu take a look to see if he really was suffering from a persecution complex. Time passed. A month had gone by since the chaos of the Koga Rebellion and his defection from the 13th Division of Imperial Guards. In that time, whether it was Ayan being appointed as the captain of the 5th Division or single-handedly suppressing the Zunpacto Rebellion, rumors had already spread throughout not just 13th Division of Imperial Guards, but the entire Syriite AI. Following that battle, all members of Soul Society. From the 4 noble clans down to the lowliest Shinigami. Came to a unanimous consensus. Ayan Sosuke, the young man who had taken just 1 month to graduate from the Shino Academy and rise to captain of a division, was not only the youngest captain in 13th Division of Imperial Guards' history in terms of age and experience. He was also universally acknowledged as the strongest genius in Syriite AI's history. The number 1 Shinigami under the captain commander. Shortly afterward, the recognition that Yamamoto Genryu's Ishigakuni mentioned in the meeting hall was formally confirmed and approved by Central 46. In recognition of Captain Ayan Sosuke's exceptional service in suppressing the Zunpacto Rebellion and personally apprehending the criminal Kuachiki Koga, Central 46 has conferred upon him the status of lower noble, a noble estate, and the right to freely enter and exit the Central 46 chambers. While the status and authority of a captain may match those of the high nobility, it is tied to the post, not the person. A captain born in Rakongai or without noble lineage would return to commoner status once they retired. But noble status. That stays with you for life, regardless of your post. And a noble estate? Located in the most prestigious sector of Syriite AI? As for the unrestricted entry to Central 46. Besides Yamamoto Genryu's Ano Hanaretsu, and a very few exceptional captains, even most current captains needed advance approval. All 3 honors, noble title, noble estate, unrestricted access to Central 46 were now being referred to collectively as the noble 3-piece suit. Once the news got out, countless Shinigami. Especially those born in Rakongai. Were left in awe and envy of the honors Ayan had attained. And Ayan? Faced with Central 46's reward, he expressed his deep gratitude in typical fashion. He claimed he had nothing worthy to offer in return. Except, perhaps, a humble gift set combining Kyoka Suigetsu and the famed demon blade, Muramasa. To express his sincerity, Ayan brought along Aizen. Who had just recovered from his injuries. And made a personal visit to Central 46 the very night the honors were announced. Of course, he had no other motive. He just wanted to thank the sages and judges face to face. And hand-deliver the Mirror Flower Water Moon X Demon Blade Muramasa illusion gift set. Every one of the judges and sages received a hearty dose of Kyoka Suigetsu's complete hypnosis. Ayan Sosuke, you brought your younger brother with you to Central 46 in the middle of the night. Why? You may have been granted unrestricted access, but only when it concerns urgent or significant matters. The sages and judges present were a bit perplexed. But since they were the ones who had granted the noble honors, it wouldn't be proper to reject Ayan's first visit. Before long, the brothers stood before the full assembly of the Supreme Judiciary of Soul Society. Nearly all the sages and judges were present. Except for 2 absentees. To maintain the integrity of Central 46 and prevent Ayan from appearing to exploit his new privileges, they stated clearly that casual visits were frowned upon. Ayan merely smiled. The hollowification experiment. It involves the 4 noble houses. Is that not significant enough? Immediately, the entire room fell into stunned silence. What were the 4 great noble houses? The pillars of Soul Society. Their power and prestige stood above nearly everything else in Syriite AI. What, then, was Central 46? A legislative and judicial body created by Yamamoto Genryu's and governed through a delicate balance between noble families. To implicate one of the 4 great houses. That was no trivial matter. Let me ask again, Ayan said, his expression calm yet sharp. Which is more sacred? Central 46, or the 4 great noble clans? A heavy silence followed. Central 46 represents Soul Society's laws and governance, one sage finally spoke. No one stands above it. Not the captain commander. Not even the 4 great nobles. But you should know, another added, that if you cannot provide definitive proof, the one being questioned will not be them. It will be you, Ayan Sosuke. I see. Ayan's grin deepened. Then allow me to show you the truth, according to the laws of Soul Society. He turned slightly. Aizen. Yes. Aizen stepped forward and gave a polite bow. My Zunpacto, Kyoka Suigetsu, is already known in Soul Society. You are all aware of its Shikai ability. However, there is one function I have not previously disclosed. Through the reflections of mist and water, Kyoka Suigetsu can not only disorient the enemy. It can also record the truth. With perfect composure, Aizen stood before the full judiciary. Every word he spoke followed the strictest decorum. Even among these proud sages and judges. None could find fault. Chapter 82, Congratulations to Central 46. In other words, as long as you witness me liberate my Zunpacto once, the truth will reveal itself. As Aizen calmly spoke to the gathered sages and judges, he slowly removed the zanpakuto hanging at his waist. But even if what you say is true, one of the sages suddenly spoke up, his tone cold. If I remember correctly, you, Aizen, were under the influence of hypnosis by Kuichiki Koga's zanpakuto, Muramasa. You were injured by your own blade, weren't you? After that, you were sent to the 4th Division for treatment. You never participated in the operation to capture Koga. The speaker was unmistakably one of the sages aligned with the Kuichiki faction. That's correct, Aizen nodded without hesitation.